I'd like to call to order the Administration and Finance Committee meeting for November 13, 2025, right here in Village Hall. There's public comment will be allowed following any agenda item. Rules of order and common courtesy will be rendered and expected, and the time limit for each person is 3 minutes. And a call to order will be by observation, and if everyone will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over immediately to who wants.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kick us off too, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Chair. I just wanted to, welcome everybody. It's our new board, I think, my first budget in this seat, and I got to say, first time in almost 15 years. The board had everything almost a week ahead of time, which is a testament to just about everybody in this room, and that makes this day hopefully a lot less painful and a lot more efficient and a lot easier for all of us up here to follow and understand, and I appreciate that. I know how a deadline just today to have everything is tough, but a week before so we can be more transparent and share it with everybody and make sure we're aligned is appreciated. So Alan, you and your whole team, thank you, but everybody else that's here, thank you for making a priority to get it done so we can put this to bed and get back to work. But with that, I think we'll just pass it over to our village manager to say some things, and away we go.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. So welcome everyone to the 2026 budget workshop. I just want to lay out some higher level comments before we turn it over to Director Altick for his presentation. This is a process that began in this past July, and huge thanks to Director Altick and his staff in the Finance Department for putting together the presentation that you're going to see tonight. Alan was hired about 1.5 years ago, and he had come in under one budget, and we were in the process of a gap year to get from May 1st start date to a January 1st start date, and it was like right into the frying pan he went. So great job by Alan and his team for putting this together so seamlessly. As the mayor mentioned, this is the first time that we've had the budget document out to the board prior to the budget workshop. So again, a testament to Alan and his team for that. Hopefully it makes for a more robust conversation tonight now that you're armed with the knowledge of what 2026 looks like from a financial situation with the village. Just a timeline for this review process. You received the budget document on November 7th, which was last week. The workshop is tonight, November 13th, 4:30, and I have a question mark on here. Hopefully try to keep it to 2 hours. See how that goes, but depends on questions.
We can cut mics, can't we?
I think we can. We're going to ask November 20th at the conclusion of Chief Gruen's comments and program for the Police Public Safety Committee meeting. There'll be about an hour for the board to ask any additional questions of staff. So we'll have that opportunity as well next week, and then we'll ask on the November 20th village board meeting to approve the 2026 budget. We do have December 11th as a backup date in case there's anything that goes askew and there's deep dives that we have to do or serious research or whatever. So if we do have the time, because of Thanksgiving break, we'll push that to December 11th in case we need it. Hopefully we will not. The process for tonight, Alan will do most of the talking. However, department heads and their representatives will add context to some of the department requests before you, and obviously we're going to go to the person that has the best knowledge and information for any questions that the board has. So we have obviously a fleet of staff in the audience ready to answer any questions. We hope that this is a dialogue and not a monologue. So I don't know if Alan's got the energy to go 2 hours talking by himself like a comedy routine, but please ask questions as they arise. Don't hold them until the end. And Some of the guiding principles that we used internally for staff, we have a couple of the proposals is, that we're currently in the midst of updating our strategic plan. So we already have had focus groups and surveys, reaching out to the community, the public, and stakeholders to get the strategic plan going. Community development will be kicking off a comprehensive plan update in 2026. So really, we're planning for 2026 ahead of 2 guiding principle documents that are still in development stages. So keep that in mind as we move through the various departments. A few of the things that I asked of staff, to make sure that the experience between the public and village staff is as seamless and smooth and enhanced as possible. We want to leverage technology. We want to improve systems and processes. And we want a more immediate customer service experience for whether residents or developers or business owners, what have you. Anybody that interacts with village staff, we want a very immediate customer service experience. One of the things we have to do is, as a governmental entity, we have to provide core services, right? You turn your faucet on in your house. We have to make sure the water makes it from Lake Michigan, well, technically to the B box, not into your house, but we have to get the water as close to your house as we possibly can. That's our job, and then it kind of takes it from there. But that's a core service, right? That's something that we have to provide our taxpayers. There's also quality of life things that we do. The flower pots on Cass Avenue is a quality of life thing. It's not a necessity, but it's a feel good, and it defines who we are as a village. It makes us unique to other surrounding communities, and so there's a lot of quality of life type things that we budget for because it's good for the community, village-wide. We want to focus on accomplishments. This is one of the things that I brought from the police department. We were always driven by accomplishments on an annual basis. We lay out at the beginning of the year what we want to accomplish, and then we look back and say, did we do it or did we not do it? And this is the same kind of philosophy that we now have at Village Hall. So, when we sit down in January 2027, what are we going to look back and say we got done in 2026? Certainly business friendly is a main driver from the board. So as staff, we hear you. We know that it's a big endeavor. It's a big accomplishment, something that the mayor and the board wants. So through building code enhancements, zoning updates, stormwater reviews, permanent and fee structures, and improving the overall timeliness of the processes, we are trying to be as business friendly as humanly possible. So all that's baked into the budget as well. We are fiscally responsible. We try to be as lean as humanly possible. As we started the process in July, it's a back and forth between the finance department and the various departments. So, the departments put their proposals together, and then it's a bunch of negotiation. It's a bunch of chopping. It's a little bit of adding, based on need, and that goes back and forth. It then goes through another review with myself. And same thing, more chopping, a little bit more adding based on need. So really, we've gone back and forth numerous times with the various departments to make sure that the money they're asking for is appropriate, it serves the village's purpose, and there's no waste or fluff, buried into it. We incorporated all the village board priorities. We talked both, informally with the board and formally at, committees and meetings. So we hear you, our ears are open, we know what you're saying, and we're taking it all under advisement when we build out the budget. We had, as part of the email we sent out, we asked the board to submit any questions to Director Altick, and we received a few. So those are incorporated into the back end of the PowerPoint. So those will be slides that we created within the last few days. They'll be the last few slides in the presentation. And again, if there's any questions along the way, please ask. And yeah, let's kick it off. So over to Director Altick for his presentation.
Thank you, board. All right, so getting into it, this is today's agenda. We're gonna walk through and talk about kind of our budget process. Jim laid out most of the process very nicely. Then we'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts and the details. We'll dig into our revenue analysis and our expenses for the 2026 budget year before we kick it over in departments and hear a department perspective regarding planned activities and projects for 2026. We'll sort of flip the projects on you and maybe talk about them in a different light. We'll talk about them more in terms of themes or categories before we wrap up and go on to our next steps. So getting right into it, Jim laid out, this is our guiding principles on the screen. This is part of our strategic plan. Nobody quote me on when that plan was from. I want to say somewhere around 2013. And to Jim's point, this is something that we're working on and expect to hopefully either wrap up here this fiscal year or likely bleed over into 2026. But so by the time we sit down next year, we may have a slightly different set of guiding principles. This is the budget timeline to get to today. This process started all the way back on July the 10th. So I was curious in light of the snowfall and the cold temperatures earlier this week, what the weather was like on July 10th. It's a sunny 82 degrees, far cry from what we had earlier this week. So this is an outline of the village's funds on your screen. We have 14 funds that we budget for. I'm not going to go over all these funds. Bulk of our funds are either we have a number of funds that are capital oriented for different purposes. The general fund is our main operating fund. That's where the core services that the village provide are housed. And we have a debt fund which pays all the village's outstanding bonds and loans. And the tail end or at the bottom, we have village has two TIF funds, which is meant to spur on economic development. And at the avenues, rough avenues of Cass and 63rd, and also in the downtown. All right, breezing right into kind of the bottom line. This is one of the screens that everyone kind of wants to see. This is the budget for proposed for 2026. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I didn't do any research on this, but I'm gonna go out on a pretty safe limb and say this is probably one of the largest budget maybe the village has ever had at $120 million. A lot of that's, well, it's primarily driven by capital, with $54 million of capital projects in the budget. Obviously, the fire station is the majority of those capital projects. A couple of things I want to point out. General fund is looking very solid, healthy fund balance reserves. As we end 2026, it'll have healthy fund balance reserves. And we are using a little over $10 million of fund balance next year. As almost the vast majority of that is represented by capital, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's sort of why we have a lot of these funds, is for capital. And so we're using it because there's a lot of projects to be done next year. So I'm going to start off and give a brief outline of some of the village's revenues. So we're going to kind of start as we take this deeper dive into the budget. This is our revenues broken down into 8 or 10 categories. Taxes make up the vast majority. This comes from a lot of different sources. So the village has certain local taxes that it sets up, such as maybe a non-home real sales tax, or a utility tax, or a property tax. But a lot of the taxes are also state-oriented, such as there's certain sales tax that are state-oriented. MFT taxes, income taxes are all state-derived. A portion of those revenues are then shared with the village based on our population.
Alan, do you have last year's tax number?
I do not.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, is it the same, more or less?
This is going to be a little bit more. I couldn't tell you what the exact number was last year, but I'd say probably fairly consistent with last year, but this is going to be a little bit more. There's certain things like our sales taxes, our places for eating taxes, and property taxes.
Yeah,
typically
I'm just
go up.
looking like, what's the growth, right?
Yeah.
Is it 5%? Is it 10%? What is it?
Yeah, if I had to give a number, I'd probably say it's probably pretty close to 2 to 3%.
2 to 3%?
Yeah. That falls in line. If we look at our property taxes, you know, that number is only really going to grow at most by 2.9, 3.1% based on CPI and what new construction might be. So really only looking at 3.1% growth for next year. and stuff like sales tax and income tax is, forecasting 2% growth, a little over 2% growth, 1% for income tax. So all in, I'm guessing around that 2.5% if I had to guess.
Okay.
All right, and on this screen is 10 different revenues. These are some of our major or noteworthy revenues that I wanted to kind of bring about to the board's attention. And I want to get in and talk about pretty much all of these revenues on the next several slides. One thing I thought was interesting on the graph to the right. So earlier I talked about how taxes make up $41 million of the village's revenue budget. This graph to the right, the pie chart, breaks down those taxes in terms of how much are those tax dollars coming from solely Westmont residents, solely on the backs of Westmont residents, versus how much have a broader impact. So for instance, Westmont resident full impact, those are things like property taxes. We're not getting property taxes from residents in Downers Grove or Clarendon Hills. It's only coming from Westmont. Utility taxes are only coming from Westmont residents. But when we flip it and look at the Westmont tax dollars that come from other sources, those are could come from people from Downers Grove, Clarendon Hills, or visitors internationally. So if a resident comes in and buys goods in our community, they could come from anywhere. And so those tax dollars are coming into the village and providing an impact to their citizens of Westmont, but the actual payee is likely could come from someone from out of town. At the top right, there's talk about telecommunications tax. I'm happy to point out that in 2026, staff has identified opportunity to cut taxes for Westmont residents, and in the budget is a proposed cut of telecommunications tax from 6% down to 5%. Staff feels like this is prudent and responsible. This is money that the village doesn't necessarily need and is responsible to put back into the hands of our residents. And it's a tax that is fully borne by our Westmont residents. So the Westmont residents are the ones who are benefiting from this tax cut.
And that's a tax on what, every cell phone bill and home phone bill?
Every cell phone bill. So this is it's not the data side,
Yeah.
it's on that communication side of your bill. So the data side doesn't get taxed, it's more on the communication side of your cell phone bill. I'm gonna pause and see if there's any questions so far before I delve into some of these.
You could repeat Westmont's cutting taxes, maybe. That'd be nice.
I mean, it's a big deal. You don't
It is a
typically hear
big
this
deal. It all
from
adds up.
communities to cut a tax. You might hear sometimes cutting or reducing a fee. I know village doesn't have a vehicle tax, but I'm sorry, a vehicle sticker program. But it's been in vogue the last few years for cities to cut that fee. But this is cutting a tax, which is almost unheard of.
Trustee Perilli still breathing over there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you don't usually get less taxes because anyone knows doing.
Very good.
Delve into property taxes. This is something that we're going to talk about over the next 2 meetings. So you'll see me more at each of the next 2 meetings as we talk about property taxes and approve our levy by the end of December. So the village has 6 different property tax levies. Most of these are centered around, I would argue, core services. They're centered around public safety, retirement benefits, and risk liability insurance coverage. These are core services, not fluff items. These are core services that our property taxes are paying for. And so the village is only a small portion of your tax bill. So when you get your tax bill, the village is likely a very small portion of that tax bill, representing about 11% of your typical tax bill. Your school districts are likely to make up 60-70% of your tax bill. The village is a very tiny portion at 11%. And we are limited in terms of, as non-home rule community, we're limited in terms of how much we're able to grow our revenues. Through state statute, we're limited to 5% or CPI. Right now, CPI for the tax levy that I'm going to bring forth to you in the next couple meetings is limited to 2.9%. We are able to capture some new construction. So all in, we'll probably receive somewhere around 3.1% increase overall to our tax dollars as we go into 2026. TIF. So this is property taxes that the village gets in each of its two TIF districts, the downtown TIF again, and the 63rd and Cass Street TIF. Just backing up, each of these TIFs have a finite life, 23 years. The village set these up in 2013 and are set to expire in 2036. So the village is able to capture property tax revenue through growth in those districts. So when you see that spike in 2025, that represents fully Quincy Street apartments down the street fully coming online, and the village is able, because this is a brand new property, the village is able to receive a large share of property tax revenue is coming into the TIF because of that redevelopment that's happening in that district. Sales tax. Over the last year, we've seen pretty solid growth of 7.5%. I will say that some of this growth has come from a couple of new businesses that have come into the village. There's a medical equipment provider and a security company that were new in 2025 that have performed pretty well. So that's contributed to some of that growth. And I will say the village has lost Amazon Fresh. That is represented in that not represented in that 7.5% growth, just because of the timing. The village is still receiving tax distributions due to sales from Amazon Fresh, because the state is in a 3-month lag. So that's in part why I'm trying to be conservative in terms of our revenue growth for next year. I got 2.1% growth for next year. Just trying to be conservative, trying to be reflective of kind of the larger economy as a whole. The Fed is trying to target a 2% growth in our economy. Inflation is running a little bit higher than that, but trying to match and mirror more of what's kind of happening at the federal level, trying to be conservative, and also reflecting the fact that we were able to grow our tax revenues in this line item because of some new businesses that were in town. Are we going to be able to, mimic that again and get new businesses coming into town? Obviously, we're trying to do that through economic development. We're having Brian Kajewski, so hopefully this will continue to grow. But I'm forecasting kind of an easy, steady, and not forecasting those types of things, because I don't want to bank on those types of revenues and we're providing services for stuff that we don't know are happening yet.
Can I ask a question? Just very quick, when you had mentioned that you try to forecast based on what's going on federal, but do you kind of look at what's also going on at the state level?
Sure.
Oh, okay. I mean, because they just had the veto session and increased a lot of taxes in the next year, so.
Yeah. And some of those might be, revenues that they're I'm not exactly sure what taxes they raise. I know, they're trying to fund some of the Metro stuff.
Yeah, so.
For that, but some of that's really not going to impact us.
Oh, okay.
That's really going to impact, the state budget.
Okay.
And impact, Metro and other transit groups.
Yeah.
So at the bottom of the slide, the village uses a lot of its income tax from auto sales. Just want to point that out to the group. Roughly 50% of our sales tax does come from one industry. In the bigger picture, that might be a little bit of a diversification issue. But I will say a lot of those car dealerships are performing well and are a huge contributor to our overall sales tax numbers. At the bottom, our top 10 includes spattering of auto, grocery, and electronics companies in town. Non-home rule sales tax. You're seeing that large increase on the screen out past 2020 into 2025 and 2026. This is due to the fact that in March of 2025, the board increased the non-home rule sales tax from its 0.5% up to its full up to 1%. So that's reflective in that large spike that you're seeing in 2025. In each 0.5%, I'm forecasting 2.5% $4 million into next year's budget. So all in, we'll receive about $5 million in tax dollars from non-home real sales tax. For accounting purposes, I am splitting those dollars in half, and that's to keep the stormwater funds, because that was the intent of the board when they initially raised non-home real sales tax back in 2013, is keep the stormwater funds. And so we've created, finance is in creating a new fund actually this year, and it's in the budget for 2026, called the infrastructure fund, and that's where the new 0.5% is going to go, because it has a much broader things that it can spend money on. Stormwater is just stormwater focus, whereas infrastructure can be stormwater, it could be roads, it could be sidewalks, it could be facilities. So it's just keeping those dollars, the dollars that they're meant for. Places for eating tax. We've seen a pretty solid growth coming out of COVID. These are the businesses that were hit really hard during COVID. Probably somewhere around that 2022 mark shown on your screen, we really start to see a recovery in a lot of those restaurants. And so steady growth this last year, 5%. Once again, kind of run through that theme of trying to be conservative in terms of what I'm forecasting next year. A little over 2.1% growth is estimated. Just taking a step back and talking about being conservative and not, you want me to be a little bit conservative in my growth estimates. You don't want to rely on me forecasting revenues that may or may not come to fruition. And we don't want to bank on having services. There's a fine line. We don't want to go too small and not be able to fund stuff that we need to fund, but we also don't want to get too risky and try to find resources that, are a little iffy. Income tax. This is a state tax with a portion of the dollars set aside by the state and distributed out to villages like Westmont based on our population. This is a tax that's seen pretty steady growth since COVID. Stock market returns and business incomes have all been really solid over the last 3 or 4 years. It's really driven a lot of growth in this category. Some of these are facing maybe a little bit of headwinds as we head into 2026. How much are tariffs going to impact business income is still a little bit of an unknown. And maybe some of you are wondering what OB3 is. This is One Big Beautiful Bill. There are some parts of One Big Beautiful Bill that provide a lot of tax benefits to corporations. And we don't really know what all this is going to impact for 2026. And so I'm forecasting less than a 1% growth in this category. IML, the Illinois Municipal League, has provided guidance suggesting less than a 1% growth. And these are some of the reasons why. We just don't know really what some of these headwinds are going to look like. Because business income and corporate income is a large portion of it. And we're going to continue to have these strong stock market returns that we've seen over the last several years. Motor fuel tax, once again, this is another state level tax with a portion of it shared to the village based on our population. Just want to point out the scale. It looks like this MFT is really increasing, but if you really look closer at the scale, maybe $100,000 to $150,000 in growth over the last 5 years. So it's sort of steady growth, but this is not a tax that's really growing substantially. And that makes sense. EVs are becoming more and more popular, so it makes sense that this is a tax that's not growing very rapidly. The state does have year-over-year multipliers in terms of what it increases its tax rates by. That's likely where this growth is coming from, because I bet if you looked gallons sold at the gas pumps, it's probably coming down. I'm going to talk about that middle point here at the end. At the bottom, this is the cost to resurface 1 mile road is about $500,000. MFT brings in a little over $1 million. So you do the math in terms of what's affordable. We're only looking at about 2 miles a year. Maybe from time to time you can squeeze out a 3rd mile, depending on if maybe that road's not as wide as some of the other roads, certain circumstances. But generally, our affordability is only 2 miles a year. And we have 64 miles of roads to maintain. Not a great calculus.
No, really quick, like for the, are there only certain companies that resurface? I mean, that just seems like an awful lot. Where do you get those like bids? I looked at that number and I was like,
Yeah, I think this comes from our most recent bid. I can't remember who, I apologize, I can't remember who our contractor was this last year, but I think it was somewhere around 475,000.
awfully high, but I mean,
Yeah. MFT resurfacing projects are bid through a sealed bid process.
Okay.
They're advertised in the IDOT Contractors Bulletin. The contractors have to be pre-qualified, and it is a sealed bid. We keep track of all of our bid tabulations, so we have historical costs and allows us to do our estimates for the next year, figure out how much we can do. So we are trying to be as efficient as we can. with
yeah, I'm sure. I just seems like
It's costs are going up on everything. Labor goes up every year.
Yeah.
It's all union labor, goes up every year.
Yeah.
So in 2013 and 2014, right, we were behind the eight ball with roads. What would you like to do? How many miles of road would you like to do every year to keep it up? Because if we fall behind like we did before, someone's going to point the finger at you.
So we have a few things going on in our roadway system. We have a lot of roads that can be resurfaced. Those are the roads that they already have curb and gutter. The pavement condition is sufficient that would allow resurfacing, like doesn't have a large amount of base failure. For example, this year, I'll give a contrast. On Hidden View, there was a section of it closer to Cass that could just be resurfaced, mill off 2 inches, resurface it. There was a section, the Hidden View section, further to the east that had a lot of base failure. We couldn't just resurface it. It had to be a partial reconstruction where we dug out a lot more and we rebuilt the base and put in a thicker pavement section to ensure the structural stability and lifespan of the road would be sufficient. So we have situations like that going on. Straight resurfacing, partial reconstructions. We have areas like our next year project that we're proposing on Des Moines, where there's a section that's already got curb and then a section that is a rural section still that's going to be getting curb and gutter. So there's a cost implication there. That would be a full reconstruction. And then we have another situation, which would be in this neighborhood behind us here, where the original roads were concrete roads that were integral curb, and the roads have been overlaid so many times that now there's only about like this much curb sticking up. So that's another different category of expense other than just a resurfacing. Mill and resurface is a lot cheaper than doing like these partial reconstructions or what's back here where we're gonna have to like saw cut out the old concrete road and reestablish the curb and reestablish the crown of the road. So just trying to get a handle on all those cost drivers. What would we like to do? More than $1 million a year, but
Oh, for sure, but.
we don't
you
have
know,
a good.
So I
guess-
heard about a month ago, life expectancy maybe is 20 years, hope. And we know it's not going to make 20 years, right? So
You
if
can. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how good of condition the base is in, how much traffic the road gets, the pavement section that's there right now, how much recycled asphalt is in the mix.
So
Plays a role.
I guess
salt,
the
right.
question is,
How bad of a winter? How many like freeze-thaw cycles the road experiences?
how much do you have planned next year? And how much can you handle if you had more money? Because I guess what I'm saying is, we don't want to fall way behind because it doesn't seem like you got a lot of money there.
So we're doing
How much can you handle per year with your staff?
with resurfacing quite a bit.
Okay.
The design demand to produce the contract documents for that isn't as big as some of the other ones, like doing a full reconstruction, for example, or doing like the alleys where
And how many miles of resurfacing do you have in next year?
in next year, about a mile.
A mile.
And then we have the reconstruction of Des Moines is the balance of the
But you could do more
funds. We could do more, yes.
if the money was there.
Yes.
So there's 1.9 million in the budget for next year. We are starting to bankrupt the MFT fund. I think there's only $400,000 or $500,000 left in that fund. So there's probably enough money to do a really great program next year before, I'll say, it runs out of cash and you're forced into $1 million a year. So the reason that we're able to do a little bit more than the $1 million this year is in 2020, and for a 3-year period, 3-4 year period, the state issued Rebuild Illinois fund grants to villages. and we got somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.5 to $4 million. Probably couldn't have come at a better time for the village. And so we were able to use a lot of that money. All that money has all been spent to
So when
use for roads.
that fund is depleted, right, we still have debt from 2013.
Yep.
Now, the fund is depleted, so knowing that it's gone, where would we get money from to maintain the roads that we need to maintain?
Well, long-term, we're either going to have to look at some of our long-term planning funds. We do have the new tax for infrastructure that we could use to tap into a little bit. Probably not enough money in that fund to make up, to double your efforts. You might be able to get a little bit of efforts out of that, maybe instead of maybe a half mile instead of a mile.
So there isn't another $1 million. There is not another $1 million for roads.
A year,
Yeah,
it would probably be tough to find an extra other $1 million a year.
okay.
I do want to lay the groundwork for something that I think is going to come down the road really, really soon. I'm a little surprised that this legislation hasn't come through already. So in the middle of the slide, there's a bullet point that says non-home rule local fuel tax 3% like Cook County. So in 2019, it went into effect in 2020. Oops. Legislators down in Springfield allowed non-home rule communities only in Cook County. Why? I don't know. Only in Cook County to issue or to authorize locally an up to 3-cent tax on gas stations in their community. IML is trying to support this legislation down in Springfield. I'm not aware of anything coming to fruition with that down in Springfield, but hopefully soon they will open up that to DuPage and other communities across the state, authorizing the local villages, non-home rule communities like us, to issue up to 3-cent local tax.
That's to the gas stations or to
Yes.
the people? I mean, like, obviously, they'll hit then.
So the gas stations, I can't remember how many are in town. There's a number of them, at least 6 or 8 different gas stations in town. So let's just hypothetical, the village were to go forth and do the 3-cent tax. So those gas stations would likely have to raise their rates by 3 cents to be able to and pass that tax on to whoever's buying the gas.
If we wanted to do it.
If we wanted,
Right, so if we're saying where do we find the extra money to do the roads,
Yeah, it's hard.
that's not even an option right now.
Yeah.
It could become an option in the future and would be something we could look at if we wanted to.
Amy, did I hear you say Des Moines is going to be like a curb and gutter
Yep.
full reconstruction? I'm wondering, since that's such a big expense, that maybe the next Public Works Committee meeting, the budget's kind of baked in, maybe we should have a discussion with the board on, do we prioritize just resurfacing on situations like that instead of doing the full curb and gutter when we have so many roads that we're not able to keep up with already? It just seems like if we had endless pots of money, we don't want to do curb and gutter, but we have so many that need it. I struggle with just picking one here and plucking away at it when we're lacking potentially on just standard resurfacing. So
Yep.
just a
Certainly a
reaction.
discussion. Another option is to, scale back our alley program and focus on roads.
Something we got to
So
figure out, I think,
it's
as
all
a team.
It's all
you know?
trade-offs, yep.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's a big problem and maybe something to dissect at a Public Works Committee. Go ahead, yes,
The
sir.
episode that happened up on Trowbridge, is that all resolved? And how much additional money went into that one?
Which one?
The one that.
Like which
we
part?
got the
Yeah.
complaint about?
The big project,
We gotten lots of complaints, you'll have to narrow it down.
getting down.
Resurfacing added to it.
Yeah, the resurfacing happened last week. Now we're finishing concrete, driveway aprons, landscaping, starting to pull off the job.
And how much additional funds went into that?
There was a change order to resurface Washington Street, and that was 200,000. And that was just resurfacing.
Wasn't there other
nothing-
change order too? Another one?
That was the,
Was there another one though for other part of the project?
no, that was the only one
Just
that,
one?
yeah.
Okay.
So,
I do want to say, a lot of our alleys are in really bad shape too. And I want
Yeah.
to see how we can prioritize maybe doing both, because,
Well, that's what I mean. It's
yeah,
tough to prioritize
really
someone
is.
getting a brand new curb and gutter when you have other situations like
Yeah.
that. So I think before you go and get it done, the team's got to be unanimous on what's the priority. Because I don't think we ever planned that before. It's always just been willy-nilly and let's just get done when we can. And
Yeah,
now
so we
we're
have-
getting to a point where we need to have a plan to figure it out, I think.
we do every 3 years, streets efficiency study where the pavement condition gets analyzed, and we use that to guide a lot of our decision-making. So the pavement condition index is a numeric value. It's done via an optical scanning of the surface, so it's not subjective. The truck that drives with optical scanner doesn't know who lives where. They don't know, that there's a school or a important facility somewhere. So we use that numeric data to guide that decision-making so that we can keep our average pavement condition index at an acceptable level throughout town. So in Des Moines that segment of Des Moines was identified as a full reconstruction. So we would have had to do a full depth pavement section there anyway.
And it's not that it's just that they don't have curb and gutter, right? It's, if that study says this road is in such bad shape, it can tell that it's not just the surface of the road that's a problem, it's all the stuff under it needs to come out, and that is like the worst spot in town.
It looks at all the pavement defects.
And so
and
unfortunately, the places that
quantifies
are the
them.
worst part in town are the ones that have all the problems underneath that are the most expensive to fix. Is
And
that right?
The other really bad one was Trobby, which got resurfaced last week. So, and that was a full reconstruction also. So there was a lot of utility trenches that drove that decision. There was a lot of pavement failure, so.
Yeah, I guess
So
where
things to
I'm
talk
at is,
about.
it's just something to talk
Yeah.
about, because if you could resurface 3 roads instead of doing curb and gutter for 1,
Yep.
and it still gets resurfaced, well, I think we're in a position, we have 65 miles, we're only doing 1 million, we can't have everything, right? So we gotta figure it out.
You may have seen also in Clarendon Hills how they have the concrete ribbon curb.
That's a good happy medium, maybe, yeah.
They assess the residents for that.
Yeah,
to
see,
get
there
the
you go.
curb.
There's different
So
ways.
There's a lot of different ways.
When it's a full replacement, on average, how long does that last versus just a resurfacing?
So you can resurface a road multiple times. Eventually, you will get to the point where you will have to do more work to it. And it depends on a lot of factors, as I kind of mentioned before. What do you say, 2 or 3 times?
Yeah.
Greg this is our village engineer, Greg Ulrich.
All right.
Started, welcome Greg. He did his master's thesis on this topic, so.
Got the right guy then.
I did not do that. So, when you're resurfacing, you're lengthening the life of that pavement. So you're sealing back up all the cracks where the water could get in. So typically, 20 years is what a design life is for a road, assuming you don't do any maintenance on it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're doing resurfacing to extend that 20 years. And like Amy said, typically it's 3 times that you do that. Okay. That resurfacing is usually 15 to 20 years cycle. So if you look at the dollar values that we have, so if it's 64 miles of road and we do 2 a year, that's every 32 years we're coming and redoing the top of road. That's too long. By then you've got plenty of cracks, water getting in, and then it's making that base worse, and so you go from resurfacing to total reconstruction. So 3 gets you to the 21, right? So that's on the high end. So I came from Carroll Stream. We were spending about $2.5 million. We have twice as many roads in Carroll Stream than in Westmont. 15-year cycle for the resurfacing. Now, one thing that we can do here in Westmont to stretch our dollars, and what we will do, is some preventative maintenance. So instead of just resurfacing, we can also, in between those resurfacings, seal the cracks with the sealant. So you've seen that on other roads, right? So you can do that, and that buys a lot more time. You can also add kind of the same of sealing your driveway. There's more specialized products for roads that you can do, and that'll soften the pavement and make sure it doesn't crack as much. And so that's pennies on the dollar, really, compared to resurfacing. So we're going to implement those things right away so that we can get closer to achieving, the 21-year, cycle, right? But I think I answered your question
Yes, thank
initially,
you.
right, and then expanded beyond that. Is there any further questions on that, or?
Can you find out how we can get a lot more money to do more work?
Yeah, well, that's the preventative maintenance, right? So the crack sealing and,
No, I get it.
retrievable stretch the dollars that we
It's
have.
really like, we need a program because we have debt on roads for another, what, 16 years?
2033, I believe.
We've got it in a slide coming up.
I do.
We'll have the answer very soon.
But no, there's a lot to do. We heard alleys, we got more roads, it's side.
Well, so
it doesn't
our
stop.
number's real low on roads, but our number's also low on water main, right?
Yep.
And that, you got all this water main infrastructure that you gotta maintain. But our numbers, so far, our number for roads and water main is 1. So in 100 years' time, you got a new system there.
The water main has a lot longer lifespan, though.
Yeah.
We had a rate study done recently, didn't we? That should have taken care of how to fund that, and,
Yeah, well, but I just don't want to borrow more money for roads until we paid off the last credit card, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So obviously prioritizing, like Mayor Nero said, and seeing whether or not we want to spend money on, the curb and gutter section versus 3 times that of, that's exactly the way that, pavement management gets done. And so looking forward to establishing that. I'd say one of the things of pavement management, just to dovetail on that, is you don't do the worst first. That's the wrong way to do pavement management, because by that time, that's what happens is you're spending all this money for a small chunk because it got really bad, when you can be preventing the rest of them from getting that bad by, taking care of the ones that are not good, but are still good enough that if you resurface it again, you're going to get that 15 to 20 years out of it. And so you can then, find that time when we get another ARPA, to go and do those major ones, right? I'm not crossing my fingers for another COVID, but there was some benefit from that. I'm sorry, you.
Sounds like we got the
Trustee
right guy.
Priya, you had.
I was just gonna say, do you think like salt really has a huge effect
I'm sorry,
on
salt?
salt?
Yeah.
I mean-
Salt has an effect on concretes,
Okay, not on blacktop?
not so much on the blacktop.
Okay. My driveway looks pretty bad.
Yeah. There's
It's a different thing that's happening to the asphalt. It oxidizes in the sun.
Okay.
It becomes more brittle,
Okay.
the fines wash out top layer.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of probably what you're seeing on your asphalt driveway.
Yeah, okay. I just,
So, but yeah, we can bring back some of these things to talk about at our December 11th meeting. Some more pavement management ideas for you to talk about.
So Director, do you have kind of, because you mentioned Des Moines, so, and then with the mayor mentioning a priority, so do you have kind of a wish list of roads that are next, that we can kind of review on, as far as the need of repair
Yeah.
versus resurfacing?
Yeah, we can show you some examples of that. We can show you the IMS report that shows all the pavement condition index. There's a lot of information in there that we can share that talks about the state of our roads and our average pavement condition index and how much money we have to spend to keep it at that level. So we can certainly provide that at our next meeting.
and that was done when, the IMS report?
2024, so it's fairly recent.
And so the product they provide, after going through all the roads and rating the condition, is a report that tells us which roads they would recommend doing. And so that list is all, right, part of the deliverable?
Yep.
Yeah. So obviously, we're going to want to look at that and make decisions based on, what we know about Westmont and what we value. They're just looking at it from a pavement, numeric level. But we have that to start with, right?
Yep.
And you want to group the projects close together geographically. Every time they have to mobilize and demobilize, all that equipment costs money.
Yeah.
And it's not money that you get as a square yard of pavement, it's money that they use to drag all their equipment all over the place. So that's why when you see we're doing just one neighborhood, or they're very close together geographically, because we get better pricing for doing that.
Makes sense.
Thank you, makes sense. Thanks. Alan's getting antsy over here.
Back up.
That was answer is me.
Yeah.
Leaning in.
We got-
No, good.
We got all night.
Yeah. We got more food.
All right, next topic, interest income. Excuse me. So this is a slide of our interest income, interest earnings over the last handful of years since 2022. I can think about this as sort of free money. This doesn't come from a tax. This is putting our current tax dollars that are sitting idle, putting those to work, earning more money, so we can kick back in and provide more services to our residents. In 2024, we see we kind of topped out there at the peak, 3.23 million. Sorry, I got a little wonky at the bottom, and the red is the Fed's funds rates. That was a time period where Fed's funds rates were at its highest at over 5%, nearly 5.5% actually at that time. And you see it start to wane down, and our current projection for next year is close to 2 million. This sort of mirrors what's happening with the federal funds rates. If you guys hear anything in terms of Chairman Powell and discussions about the Fed's cutting interest rates over the last year, maybe not a perfect correlation, but if you want to get a ballpark guide in terms of what kind of interest income the village is making, if you follow that Fed's funds rates, it's fairly close in terms of what we're able to earn out in the market. Finance does invest the money. We've typically, new in the last couple of years, is actually going out and looking at investments, buying CDs, buying municipal bonds, highly rated municipal bonds, and trying to earn extra income beyond what we can earn just either sitting idle or sitting in just a simple money market account. So we're sitting pretty good. We went from investing $0 a couple years ago to now investing pretty close to $16 million out over. My authority allows me to invest up to 3.5 years. We have investments laddered out over a 3.5 year time period from a few months all the way out to 3.5 years, trying to squeeze out extra income that we can and put those dollars to work for our residents.
Alan, a quick question on that. Is there any statutory restrictions on what a village or municipality can invest their dollars into?
Not doing swing trades, trustee Scales.
Hey, come on.
No.
At number 7 at the quote, you could double it up right away.
No, I mean,
There's a lot of restrictions.
a lot.
Good question.
A lot of restrictions. So in our investment policy even takes it to a next level too, and limits my authority even further. So what the village can invest in, to kind of put it simply, is CDs and highly rated municipal bonds. So kind of relate it to your personal finance. So highly rated municipal bonds would be something that might have a credit score maybe 600 and above. I have been a little bit more conservative than that, and I've been buying stuff that is maybe 650, 660 and above, because I don't know, that's just who I am. I'd rather be conservative and make sure we don't run the risk of buying an investment that's not going to pan out. So that's been my approach. But that's pretty much what we're limited to is CDs, municipal bonds, maybe some treasuries. That's more or less about it.
Okay.
We're not buying stocks or anything like that.
Because you can't.
I can't.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Our pension fund can.
The pension fund can.
Yeah, but the village can't.
Yeah.
Make more if we could.
So this is a slide represents our grant revenue. My opinion, the village is pretty cognizant of trying to go out and get grants. I've worked for 2 different municipalities that weren't as active in going out and trying to get grants. Our police department's active, our fire department's active, our public works is active in trying to find grants. Not every community has that same mantra. So to me, kudos to having staff have the wherewithal to go out and try to get these grants. Sometimes these grants are a lot of paperwork and are very cumbersome. So it's a lot. So kudos to our staff for going out and trying to be active in getting these grant opportunities. One other thing I want to point out for 2026, we have the water tower over by the high school that's going up, paid for through an IEP loan. There is a fairly healthy loan forgiveness of $1.6 million. So it's a $6+ million project. 1.6 is forgiven, leaving us only to pay a little over $4 million on the debt service. We don't have to pay the full 6, we're only paying a little over $4 million off on that debt service.
It's a pretty good loan.
Yes. Yeah, and the interest rate was really low too. It's 1.36%. Well below market. If we were to go out to the bond market today, you're probably looking close to 3.75%. This next slide is our water rates. So just bringing to the board's attention. So last fall, the village hired a firm called Tellus to help guide the village through its water rates and help us project out what water rates need to be moving forward. And I believe it was in December of 2024, the board approved an ordinance approving a series of rates out into the future. So this slide is from our website. Just bring to the board's attention that we do have water rate increases coming up in January of 2026 and for the next several Januaries in a row. And that last point I just want to note for the board is the village buys its water from DuPage Water Commission. That's the wholesaler. And that water comes from Lake Michigan through the city of Chicago. These water rates don't reflect any increases that might come from the DuPage Water Commission, simply because we have no idea. I believe this last year, DuPage Water Commission, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the rate increase was 22 cents, something like that. And
I don't recall.
it was pretty healthy, 22 cents, I think it was 22 cents. So I don't know what the water rate increase is going to be for next year. We do have baked into the budget I think it's a 20-cent increase. And that's just a what if. If you have 20 cents baked in, so it's baked into the revenues, baked into the cost and the budget, that's just a what if. If it's 12 cents, we'll make it 12 cents. We're not going to make it 20. We'll make it whatever it is. If it's 3 cents, we'll make it 3 cents. If a miracle happens and they lower rates, we'll lower rates. So whatever the Water Commission does, we'll be in lockstep with that.
And I will say the Water Commission gets its water from the city of Chicago, so it's also dependent on so their costs are dependent on what the city of Chicago does, and yeah, so.
Is it all pass through, or it is all pass through? There's no arbitrage in between, okay.
This slide, so now we've transitioned out of revenues and into expenses. So once again, we have a little over $120 million spending plan for next year. I broke them up into these kind of broad categories. Once again, just want to represent how large our capital is for next year. So, these are long-lived assets that we're investing into our community. Debt. Start off and talk about debt. So this is a current schedule, not only of our current debt that we have outstanding, but also represents some of our newer debts. In terms of those newer debts, just want to quickly go down to the bottom, that 2026 state loan, that's the loan to pay the water tower. That's already been approved and is already in motion, already set.
Hey, Alan, on that water tower, isn't a portion of that, wasn't that forgiven, or is that already pulled out?
This is the amount that we have. So the
So
project
this is
was
less the forgiven?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So the project was over $6 million. This is what's left after the forgiveness. So the two above that, that's the two debts that we talked about last meeting when Raymond James was here and the board approved the contract to work with Raymond James for the debt issuance next year. So it's the $4 million for the water system improvements and the $30 million, for the fire department headquarters, plus maybe a little bit more for almost $2 million for potentially for some infrastructure. I'm going to get in and talk a little bit about some of these.
And then, Alan, on that last slide, that did confirm the question that Trustee
sorry.
Barker had about when does our loans that we got, several years ago, they were renewed in 2022, but they come off in 2033. So that's when we've got that other $581,000 coming back to be able to do more things with, either issuing new debt or start putting towards more infrastructure. Those kind of things happen in 2033.
Is the 30 million, is that the full amount from the home rule? non-home rule sales tax, or is that, because I know there's a little portion for infrastructure we got to figure out.
Yeah, I think that infrastructure is included in that, and
So
that
that's just
includes
one
the full
number?
amount, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the 30 million includes not only the fire station stuff, but also the close to $2
overage.
million, yeah, the overage to be able to do some other infrastructure. Talked about roads.
Which could be part of the road discussion, the curb
discussion,
gutters, and
sidewalk-
alleys,
sidewalks.
everything. Not a lot there, but it's definitely something.
And I'll jumping way ahead, but the 27 million is still kind of an unknown at this point. In the budget's 27 million. You know, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's on the high end. I believe when we were talking to Leopardo as part of the whole process back in maybe the spring, I feel like it might have been maybe 25, might have been the back of the envelope, quick calculation. I think we're going to know soon, kind of as we head into the spring. I'm going to butcher this term, Amy, but it's a guaranteed maximum price. I think is kind of that next step. Hopefully that's the right term, or pretty close. I think probably in the spring we'll probably know more about what that guaranteed price will be.
I heard a rumor of 22 million, so that's more for streets, huh? Just a rumor.
I like your number.
So on,
No comment from the galley back there.
via, if we could go back to the debt page there, right? So via email, I asked a question about, the $70 million of debt, right? Because as of 2012, I don't remember 2012, right? That was a long time ago. But we had no credit cards because Bill Ron didn't have credit cards, right? And so we got credit cards. Now there's a $70 million debt there. And I'm assuming that admin is comfortable and finance is comfortable with this. And then I asked the question is like, how much debt is too much debt? Because I want to be able to maintain borrowing power. Never max out your credit card, but what is our credit limit based on our finance and admin people?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer that in two ways. One is I'll answer it statutorily, and then I'll answer that cash flow.
Oh, they got rules?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta go with the rules again.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm jumping ahead in the presentation. This is a graph that is on the right in the greenish shade is our debt service, our principal and interest payments out over their life, which is out into 2046. That little chart to the left is our debt limit. So statutorily, and I can't read the calculation, but our debt limit is a function of, I believe, our EAV. Our auditors assist in calculate this number is presented as part of our audit. It's a representation, a certain percentage of our EAV is statutorily what our debt limit is. That's $91 million. And the village debt that currently is subject to the debt limit is only $1.5 million. And that 1.5 is representative of a loan for a fire truck that the village has. So the alternate revenue debt that the village has taken on is not subject to the debt limit because it's not general obligation debt, it's alternate revenue general obligation debt. And because since the village has a funding source identified for it, it statutorily doesn't count towards the debt limit. So we're way off from our debt limit statutorily, or not even in the ballpark of what our cap is. So cash flow wise, as long as we have the cash flows to be able to support the 20 years of paying off that debt service, we're fine. So the 34 million potential debt issuance does have sufficient revenues over the 20 years to be able to adequately pay for the debt service. We've already baked that. In the water rates, we've already baked that into the rate formulas. It's already been baked in. And on the fire department 30 million side, we set up passing that additional non-home real sales tax last March that is setting us up. So the annual debt service on that 30 million is 2.2. I'm projecting $2.4 million in revenues next year. We have 113% coverage. And one of the nice things about that tax is kind of like your mortgage. You're kind of fixed in terms of what you pay on your mortgage, other than maybe a little bit with insurance and property taxes maybe pay through your escrow. Your debt's fixed. Our debt's fixed, but the income grows potentially. The sales tax that we get today is going to potentially grow absent any sort of major calamity in terms of major businesses closing up shop. Will continue to grow probably closer to what inflation is growing at. So the 2.4 that we get today could be $3 million easily by the time we get to 2030, 2031. So we have adequate revenues now, and that's going to continue to grow. Our debt's going to stay fixed. The revenue is going to continue to grow.
Alan, I heard you say something about cash flow, and I was just wondering, is there some kind of debt coverage service ratio that the village has to maintain at in terms of their revenue versus their debt, or how they're matching that?
No, it's just a function of making sure that we have the revenues to be able to pay for that debt. As long as we have the revenue streams and they're sufficient to pay for the revenue over the life of that debt, we're adequate.
So where's the legal debt limit come from then? Is every town $91 million?
No.
So I will say there's two different kinds of debt. One is the debt that just says, hey, we promise we'll pay for it, we're good for it, just trust us.
Like an IOU?
Kind
It's
of.
as good as money.
Yeah, like, so if we just say, look, we promise we're gonna do it, and we'll do it however we need to, if we put it on the residents' backs with property tax, that's what we'll do. That's what's subject to the legal debt limit, and we don't have very much of that debt at all. Instead, what we have are alternate revenue debts where we say to the people who are giving us the bonds, we promise we've got enough money to cover it because we have this specific kind of revenue. And we have to promise them, we do have to have like 125% of our revenue. So we need 25% more than the debt coverage of a specific revenue that we pledge. There's no limit about how many different kinds of revenues we can pledge for the different things, but each debt individually says, oh, you've got 25% more revenue than we need, pledge to us for this debt.
So that's why you're using the term revenue in that line, okay.
Yeah.
Confused.
So there is 25% of each specific one, but not an overall this percentage of your revenues.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not sure if this helps or hurts, but I had staff put together some information for me about some other communities. So we had staff look at Downers Grove and Hinsdale in terms of so debt for us in the budget is about 5% of our expenses for next year. So staff looked at Hinsdale and looked at Hinsdale and Downers Grove. We're less than each of those communities. We're more or less right in line with Downers. Downers is 5.5, so more or less the same thing. So we're in the same boat as Downers Grove in terms of percentage of our debt related to our overall expenses. And Hinsdale is pushing 10%, 9-point-something%. So we're right in line, or even less than some of our neighbors in this area.
I think they're non-home rule, aren't they? I'm wondering, how are they
Hinsdale is
building the debt
non-home
that
rule.
much? You know, do they have, you know what I mean? Like, where are they getting double the amount of revenue opportunities as a non-home rule? It's just something to think about, I guess. I know, maybe they know something we don't, or have another idea. I don't know. It just seems double that we're both non-home rule. What else is out there? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if they had a referendum or anything.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
If they did, that would do that too, right? If you get a property tax referendum, that increases.
But did they have to feed their schools?
We didn't delve too much into the numbers other than
Yeah.
looking at what the numbers were, so I can't tell you those answers.
Just a comment. No, that's okay.
Thank you.
And I will say,
intel.
yeah, and Hinsdale doesn't have quite as much debt as us, but budgetarily, they're so much smaller than us.
So maybe that's why the percentage too.
Could be.
Yeah.
It could be some of the
That's
the
fair.
at play stuff. Let's back up. So this is a slide. I think I presented some of the stuff at last week's meeting with Raymond James. So these are the projects that we've outlined to be able to pay for these debt opportunities or for this debt. So it's the fire station. So I'm going to talk about that middle column. That's a $30 million bond issuance paying for the fire station, the architecture fees from 845, and some temporary housing relocation costs related to the fire station, and then that nearly $2 million of infrastructure improvements. Moving over into the water side, we have pretty large projects coming down the pike for next year. Water improvements for North Park, Chicago, and Willard, and water treatment plant rehabilitation. And the long-term financing plan, when we did the rate study, has us borrowing $4 million. We're paying for some of this project out of already existing cash. Oops. So this slide is meant to represent the affordability of the water loan. So when we built out those water rates just a few months ago, last winter, this is the long-term fund balance projections for the water fund over the next handful of years, up to 2033. I'm hopefully trying to represent that the fund simply doesn't have the $4 million of cash to be able to pay for this project. Unfortunately, to be honest, it's between a rock and a hard place, and there's really no other opportunity but to borrow, because we already get down to a little less than $2.5 million potentially in cash in a couple years. So
Is that because of the rates during COVID?
yeah, so with the background, so the village raised rates, if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe in 2018 or 2019, did not raise rates for several years during COVID, and sometime maybe 2022, 2023 did do a very small rate increase, but mostly sat on the sidelines for a long period of time in terms of adjusting rates. And so, you know, the day of reckoning, I guess, kind of came with the water rate increase that was passed last fall. You know, these rates take time to kind of build themselves up, so that's why we see this fund balance dip to its levels that it does in 2029. Ideally, the water fund, in a perfect world, it would have 50% fund balance. Its minimum is 25%, so we start to get pretty close to those levels at bare minimum fund balance out in 2029. Hopefully that makes sense. There's really unless we're going to push projects out a whole decade, might be able to push them a year or two, but pushing them out a whole decade probably doesn't make a lot of sense or is feasible.
Yeah, that was an emotional decision during COVID, not a financial decision, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I think we talked about this slide.
And I will say, like, with the increase in construction costs, even if we had done some small rate increases during COVID, we'd still have to be talking about this with how much construction costs have increased and gone up.
Yeah.
Because that's our big cost in infrastructure.
All right, back to me. So this slide is capital outlay. Here we talk a lot today about how large our capital program is for next year. This is a slide of our top 20 projects for next year. You do have a handout. I'm not going to admit, I just didn't want to put all 57 projects on a PowerPoint presentation, so I put the top 20. You do have a listing of all 57 in front of you. I wasn't really going to go through each and every project that you see on the list right now, but no, there's a lot of stuff in stormwater, facilities, vehicles across the whole gamut. I think maybe it would make sense to me. If you guys have any questions, maybe it's some of those projects at the very tail end, we can certainly discuss any and all of those 57 projects.
The projects are just listed in order of cost, right? Not in priority order.
Thank you, Spencer. Good point. So those projects, Spencer's point, are not listed in any sort of rank or priority order. Those projects are listed in terms of cost.
Is it safe to say we're splitting the alley cost between the stormwater and capital projects fund?
Yes.
Nice.
What was the total on, so the top 20 add up to what? And all of them add up to what? So what are we?
I don't have the math in terms of what these top 20 make up. If I were to guess, I would say nearly most of that $54 million balance. There's some pretty heavy projects listed.
Yeah. And then what ended up on the cutting room floor, right?
Yep. We have a slide at the tail end.
The total?
It doesn't have the total of what got cut, but it does. This slide presentation does list out the projects.
So another question I asked, right, is, so there's all these requests, and so this is, to me, is 57 is the need based on staff recommendations, right?
Yep.
And then as Jim had pointed out, we can't do it all. We don't have the manpower or the funding, right? So you made some choices, and the top 20 are the top 20 for a particular reason. So So again, in a perfect world, right? and
Just
you-
based on dollar amount, right?
Yeah, right. What is what's left on the total list, right, is kind of the number I'm fishing for. Is that $10 million? Is it $5 million?
Above and beyond these 57?
Yeah, or above and beyond the 20 that we are gonna do, Mayor, so.
So to clarify, the 20 that are on the slide are just the top,
Just a
most
visual.
expensive 20 projects.
Those
This
aren't the
list you-
ones that are being done.
No.
This list that you've got of
Okay.
all 57 is everything that's being done. There's a few more in addition to the 57 that
That's a-
were kind of on the list, but we kind of said, all right, you know, in addition to we don't want to spend all the money in one year, there's also the how much staff time do we have to be able to do them. And so
Right.
there is kind of towards the end a list of a few things that we said, oh, this is something we want to do, but probably not this year.
Okay, so this is happening. That's the top.
These are all
20.
budgeted, and if we can get around to doing them all, they'll happen.
The project's not.
Hey, can we just clarify the alley 3S and 7S, what that is, Amy? I still haven't figured out our cryptic coding here in the village.
Yeah, thank you.
And I don't, do you know what they are? Yeah.
These are all in the Lebec neighborhood, each of those.
I just think for the public, it's nice for them to know what's budgeted for next year instead of it being a secret. It's 7S and 3S. Like, we should just name it which street it is or something, I don't know. This feels like an old school cryptic code that might need
They're
some
just numbered from north to south.
Yeah.
7S is Washington and Hudson, Quincy and 55th. It's about 4 blocks long. And 3S is the one that's adjacent to Lebec Park.
Cool.
That's where those two are.
It's good to know, thank you. Fine.
And honestly, we talked about a lot of those projects, you know, just being cut. And, you know, I guess, you know, they're cut out of the budget, but I think you'll probably see a lot of those projects prioritized as we head into the 2027 budget year, so. All right, so we're gonna pivot a little bit. Can you hear me talk maybe for a couple more minutes, and then we're gonna let some other people get a chance to talk. I can take a throat lozenge. So we're gonna flip and talk.
Some water, we'll start with that.
That's right. That's right. Start with some water. So we're talk about what each of the departments have planned and what some of their projects and goals are for the 2026 fiscal year. Since I'm already up here, I'm gonna go first.
Finance, all right.
All right, so this is our budget for 2026. No staffing position changes for next year, keeping with the same staff. There's no new additional staff positions planned for 2026. So you see the large increase in debt service. Debt service to me is a finance item. The capital items that would have paid for those or are paying for that debt service is the cost would have been housed already in the respective department. But the actual payment of the principal and interest is a finance function. So it's in a finance budget to pay the principal and interest. Just wanted to point that out. Some of our projects for next year is on this slide. Some things that we're going to be working on for next year, continuing to manage and investing the village's cash and investment portfolio totaling over $60 million. Right now we have $16 million invested in CDs and municipal bonds and things like that, with the other portion invested in money market cash accounts. So continuing to invest and find the right opportunities that make sense to squeeze out more interest income to expand upon Village's services into the future. Village's Finance is going to be implementing a new timekeeping solution for staff. Our current solution is called NovaTime, is expected to be sunset or terminated into the future. So we've worked with a provider called UKG. They're a leader in timekeeping solutions, and we were able to lock in a rate that is equal to what we're paying right now on our current solution for the next 5 years. And so this is a solution that we're going to be working on implementing into 2026. And we've talked about this here today, working on issuing that $34 million bond issuance. This is going to take up a lot of my time in the first quarter of next year, when we're working out all the ordinance that need to come before the board, working with our advisors in terms of timing the market, and talking to S&P to hopefully at least keep, if not improve, our bond rating, which is AA+. That's the bulk of what's going to take up a lot of our time. And then later, the next few bullet points are some of the, I'm not going to go over each one of them, but are the process volumes that finance handles on a day in and day out basis. And these are the types of customer interactions and payments and paychecks and invoices that we expect to pay in 2026.
So you're going to get us to AAA? Is that what I heard?
Hopefully.
I think that might be hard to do as non-home rule.
I know, we looked at that, and
we'll try.
And maybe that's something to share. I know, Spencer, me and you talked about it, geez, probably a year ago or so, but a lot of it has to do with pension liability, and
Yep.
it's pretty insurmountable to get to that next level, but maybe there's something Alan could do.
I think pension liability
Yeah.
could be a holdback. They're going to love our financial position. That's going to be probably one of our strengths, or maybe our biggest strength is going to be our strong financial position. Our pension obligations are probably going to hold us back a little bit. And I'll say our demographics is going to hold us back. S&P and Moody's, like for instance, Hinsdale is AAA. I find it hard to believe we have so much more financial flexibility than Hinsdale ever thought about. But they're AAA. I think a lot of it has to do with their demographics. They love to look at what can this community afford, and when they start to see the property values in those communities, to me they put too much weight and stock into those types of things. But in terms of financial flexibility, they wish they were us in terms of what we can do. But that's my take. Those are the things I think might hold us back is demographics, pensions. Government services is the next one up.
Are we all awake? As you can see by the slides that we have done for governmental services, all of you sitting up here are part of my department because you're part of my budget. So when you see the numbers, know that you're all included in them. Technically, I have 2 full-time, myself and Alicia, and we have a new part-timer that has started this year in helping us in what we do, which our second slide tells you some of what we do. I put this in here specifically with permission of the village manager because I feel like nobody always knows what we do. We're kind of like off in the corner, under the radar, but our feet are pedaling very fast all the time. We deal with over 700 businesses annually, which has been kind of a challenge with trying to get the online permitting and licensing and registration done. Couldn't have done it without Brian and IT, and Alicia worked very hard on it. Those and getting our Laserfiche and all our historical documents scanned in were our priority for 25. Going into 26, our priority goes again to trying to get all the businesses and residents to understand how to use the online permitting and registration. We have a lot of businesses out of the 700 that do not do online, so we're constantly struggling. And Alicia is the pro at walking people through it kindly. So those are our objectives, is to walk into 26 and getting things more up and running in a better frame for all the businesses and residents in town, and to keep up with the FOIAs. With the new FOIA law, we're hoping that helps. Any questions for me? All right, on to the
you.
next one.
Nice and efficient, that department.
Next up, human resources.
Good evening, everyone. So as you can see, we are also not proposing any staffing changes for the Human Resources Department. Currently, myself and Megan are both the full-time employees, and in the current year budget, we have a part-time employee that was approved, and we're excited to be moving forward with hiring for that role. We recently posted a job ad for that position and had an overwhelming response. We got almost 70 applicants, which is exceptional for a part-time position, and a fair number of those people actually have previous HR experience as well. So we'll be focusing on those individuals to move forward in our interview process. We've selected 7 candidates that we will be looking to interview later this month in the hopes of having someone in the role by the first part of next year. So in terms of what we're looking to for 2026, we are going to be continuing to onboard our new employee to kind of help us with some of the processing of the HR items that we do. We also are looking forward to making some enhancements. So we're hoping to streamline our hiring process, to shorten the amount of time between interview to onboarding, to get people up and running a little bit quicker for all of our departments. We're also going to be working on updating and modernizing our job descriptions and standardizing similar positions across the village. Another thing that we're looking into is in our current Munis system, which is our enterprise resource system that the village uses for a lot of our functions. There's a feature called Employee Access, and that will allow employees to have a little bit more flexibility to update their own information. So tax forms, direct deposits, they can initiate those changes themselves, and also have some access to historical information like paycheck stubs and W-2s, which today, if they want those, they can look in their emails for that, or they have to call HR or finance to get a paper copy. So it just provides a little bit more access and transparency to our employees. We're also hoping to complete the update of the personnel policy manual. We've been working on it, but other things have kind of taken priority and haven't been able to get that to the finish line. But what we want to do is translate our current manual into plain language. It's very much legalese right now and not super easy to read. And we also want to, in that process, infuse some of the village's culture and personality to help new employees understand who we are as an organization, and also to set some general expectations for all of our staff. And then the final thing we wanted to work on for 2026 is total compensation statements, to give our employees an idea of the full picture of the investment the village makes in them beyond just the salary that they see on their paycheck. And then finally, to round out the HR portion, Alan, if you want to advance the slide.
Sorry.
Thank you. We wanted just to share quickly our preliminary results from our most recent continuum rating for our merit bonus that we'll be awarding in December. I say preliminary because we still have a couple meetings to have with different departments to talk through some of the ratings and just make sure we understand what they are proposing for their employees. So just a little bit of history on the program. As you'll probably recall, we kicked it off on January 1st of this year, and we've had two merit bonus cycles, one that we awarded in August, and that was kind of for 2024 performance, and then the one that we're awarding in December is for 2025 performance. So as you can see from the graphic, about 95% of our staff are in the green category, which is consistently meeting expectations, or teal, which is consistently exceeding. We have a handful of folks that are in yellow. Those are people who need some assistance. They're not kind of consistently meeting our expectations. So we'll be working with departments to provide support for those employees to hopefully get them up to the green level. And then we've got a couple folks who are in blue, that little slice there. And that is the highest rating you can get in our merit program. In order to achieve that, the department head has to write a memo to the village manager recommending their employee and kind of letting them know why they are mind-blowingly awesome and deserve that highest level of merit. So as the slide illustrates, we're very, very fortunate to have such a dedicated and talented group of staff that are here serving our community, and also to have a program that rewards those contributions. So we're grateful for that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about human resources.
Just a question on this program.
Yeah.
Any anecdotal feedback or anything you could share? I know this is kind of new for municipal government when we did it, but our intent was to reward those working hard. Anything you can share, at least for the board tonight, or maybe in the future, not to put you on the spot, but I just feel like this is so new and innovative. You know, is it working? Is it not? Do we need to change things? I mean, this is the first I've seen kind of like, you know, results from it, right?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I will say it's a mixed bag of feedback. I think the program is a lot because we have different components. We not only have the continuum ratings, and we had 2 this year. We'll have 1 every year moving forward. But we have like a 10-minute conversation component. So I think it was just a lot for people to digest at once. So I will say one of the things we did to adjust to that, because we're very open to feedback, and we've kind of said that all along, like you mentioned, it is a new program, and we do want to make it something that people find beneficial. So, you know, we kind of heard from the first continuum rating that we did for the August bonus, it was overwhelming. It was a lot for people to, you know, the supervisors to have to fill out all the forms and kind of have all this feedback for the employees. So since we had 2 this year, the second one we condensed and made it a little bit more streamlined for them. So hopefully it was a little less painless, or a little more painless, I guess. So it's a work in progress, I will say. I mean, I think people appreciate the money, but it's an adjustment to go from, you know, our strict general wage adjustment system where everybody got the same thing to separating it by performance. So work in progress.
And that might, you know, just for the newer board members, it always used to just be a flat GWA raise, no matter how well or how poor you did as an employee. So I thought this was a neat way. Is it safe to say that teal and blue and yellow are all making more than if it was just a GWA raise?
So green and above would
Green
be,
and above?
not yellow.
Green, blue,
would
and
not,
teal? Okay,
but,
got
I
it.
mean, that was kind of a board directive
Yeah.
that we heard. You know, you wanted to make sure that people that are meeting expectations above are not any worse off than they would be under our general wage adjustment system. So we made sure that that happened in the merit program.
And just for some extra context, generally, the general wage adjustment was based off of the collective bargaining agreement with the officers. So historically, within the last 25 years, with just very few exceptions, non-union employees received the same general wage adjustment as was negotiated with the members of the collective bargaining agreement. So this system, if you're green or higher, is better than what the union negotiated in their contract. And having sat down for numerous contracts with the union, they are, you know, industry-wide, not for a merit program, because, you know, it's all for one for all in the union world. So, you know, so we're not going to punish the non-union staff by giving them something less than what the union receives. So if you're at green, so the general wage adjustment this year for the collective bargaining agreement is 3%. If you're green or higher, green is 3.1%, so it's a little bit more than what you would have had if we just stuck with the same system. So just there alone, it's already better than the old system. Throw in the extra bonus, and then, you know, as you look, you know, we have supervisors that rate basically the entirety of all village staff as green or higher. You know, green 51%, teal 45%. So according to your supervisors of all your departments, that's a lot of high-producing people. You know, green is good, teal is a little bit better, you know, so we have, this, you know, without the money, this is a great snapshot of how good of a staff you have working in all of your departments.
Well, it's
And that's-
almost 50% going above and beyond.
Yeah, and the green, and green's rock solid. I mean, green are good performing,
absolutely.
really good employees, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. And the yellow, it's good to identify, so we can bring them hopefully to a green. You know, and the greatest benefit to me for the process and the program is the open lines of communication between supervisors and subordinates, where it was very disjointed or not happening at all, or, you know, when you tie compensation to it, it opens the door to have tough conversations. And you know, all supervisors are not created equal. They're difficult conversations to have, but this is compelling people to talk, and that's really the greatest benefit to the program, and to work through differences, because sometimes we don't set expectations appropriately. People just think that they know what their job is and they go about their day and do what they think is right, and sometimes that's the right thing to do, and sometimes, you know, you need some correction. So, you know, it's a new program, we're inching in the right direction, we're making improvements all throughout, and I think we're on the right track, you know, for having a long-term solution for a lot of problems.
Communication and evaluation are always the ones that you never quite get to, right? There's not enough time for that because everybody's busy working hard. And, you know, this kind of maybe forces you to do that. You know, it's interesting, you know, working in a school setting. Our school principal is one lady. She does classroom observation. She's only required to do it twice a year, but she does it 3 times a year. And that forces that, you know, caring conversation. I came in there, I watched you teach, you know, for a few hours, and we have these things to talk about, but it adds value to what the teacher's doing.
No, absolutely.
You know, and then she's very supportive of, she would, you know, fall on a sword for the staff, you know. So, anyway.
Being somewhat new, and I'm sure that you have feedback, required feedback from your employees as far as every year. It'd be interesting to see what this new system does for morale, or if you have a history to find out if this does improve morale. Because I know I've worked for companies where they just give the straight raise out to everybody, and you get the employees. Why should I try any harder when so and so is getting the same type of raise? So if it's performance based, it'd be nice to see what that does for morale too.
Yeah, and kind of what you described, Trustee Plowman, is exactly the reason for a merit program, to reward people for the contributions. And then the hope is that people who maybe aren't performing at the level we want them to will be motivated.
Yep.
So I will say we don't necessarily have historical employee survey data to compare it against, but certainly we'll now have metrics from the merit program that we'll be able to use year over year, and we certainly could incorporate surveys. We did an employee survey, not specifically about the merit program in June, just kind of about people's general feelings about, working for the village, things that they thought about when they thought about working for Westmont, and we're taking action on some of those things. But, we certainly could do a survey based on morale if that's something the board's interested in.
And as the village manager, I can tell you that it's a component. Compensation is a big deal for a lot of people, but study after study shows that people leave because of bad management.
Yeah.
More than compensation package, or how the perception of how they're treated, or much like we're doing the break room downstairs. I mean, that's an atmospheric thing. That's a solution to show staff how much we appreciate what they do, to give them a professional working environment. So salary is important, money's important. It's not
Any
the whole
other
pie.
aspects to make people
Yeah.
happy, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, IT.
Hello, good evening. What we have in our department is 4 full-time staff members and 1 unfilled part-time GIS employee. For the most part, our services are for internal clients or internal staff, but we also do a lot of external services out to the residents, which is one of the focuses that we have for next year's budget. And Alan, if you could change the page, please. Oh, you did, thank you. The biggest thing is improving 311 code enforcement, fixed assets, permitting, and plan review. Biggest frustration for residents is dealing with the 311 system that's currently in the Tyler product, both from the resident side as well as staff side. Is extremely difficult to work with. So we are currently interviewing and looking at 2 different companies right now to replace those systems with, and that's one of the budget points. We are upgrading or moving providers for our SOC services, which is our Security Operations Center. What they will do is monitor network traffic going in and out of the village, as well as machines. And if there is an issue or an intrusion into the network, they will be able to address that 24/7, where we are not here in the evenings or the weekends and may not catch it until hours later if someone does get into the system. So this would provide 24/7 monitoring on our network in a facility that constantly monitors their clients that are attached. Phone system replacement. The phone system is currently about 25 years old and needs to be replaced. It is non-replaceable parts after the next year. And then a bunch of other items as well, and then the biggest one is the fire station remodel. We're heavily involved in that with all of the security, door access, building, paging, networking, anything that pretty much has a wire attached to it. So any questions? Cool, thanks.
How do you feel currently about our safety as far as our infrastructure and stuff? Do you feel safe as far as malware or all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you're never 100% safe, but the village has always, or the board has always supported what we needed as far as security on the network. We moved to a SOC years ago, where a lot of communities are just moving to that model now. So we've always been proactive in that area.
So you're satisfied with the way things are?
Yes, yes. And we leverage a bunch of free stuff too that comes from the state that would normally cost us tens of thousands of dollars that they are providing through 2027 right now. So.
Hey Glenn, just a quick question on 311. I know it's been a hot topic these past 6 months and people are using it more. Do you envision it complete overhaul? I know we discussed briefly a little change, but
Rip and replace.
yeah, so it's going to be much more user friendly and
Yes, we're looking
Nice.
at two systems that are heavily used by our neighbors. Since we went into ours, a lot of that has come around. So both systems are both friendly on the front end as well as the back end. And there's a team internally that is reviewing those, and then we'll make the choice of which one to go with.
Do you know what the major complaint was? I mean, I've used it myself, and I really never found any big issues with it.
Yeah, it depends on the day you hit it. So sometimes the map works, picking an address, sometimes the map doesn't work. One of the complaints, you start typing an address, you'll get something in California. So you can't narrow it down. If you upload an attachment that it doesn't like, it will fail, but it won't tell you what the reason was that it failed. So the person is sitting there trying to submit the ticket, it just won't submit, and it's because it doesn't like what has been attached, but there is no notice to the person entering out what is going on, and that's just from the front end. The back end is extremely difficult to manage and administer, so making changes or adjustments is really hard.
when do you think a timeline is for that? Something by halfway through the year? I don't know how tough something like this is to roll out.
Yeah, I don't want to overpromise. My goal is 311 will for the public side would be the first thing we would attack. So a couple months, hopefully, with just that part, and then we'll work on the rest. It all sort of ties together, so when you start configuring one, it sort of flows into some of the, or a lot of the rest of those, because 311 in the new system would, flow into code enforcement, would tie into permitting and licensing, internal ticketing, fleet management, and we're also looking at rolling IT, help desk ticketing into the same system, which would make it easier for our employees, not having to go into numerous systems, to request services from departments.
I heard on social media, I read it, that the staff just ignores it anyway, so why do we need it, right?
That's right.
And I've heard just the opposite. So I heard, as far as, there was a couple of sidewalk complaints that somebody said, and it took a day within getting it fixed, so hats off there.
Yeah, there we go. Right.
Glenn, how old is the 311 system that we're using?
About 4 years.
Thank you.
It was a smaller portion of the ERP for the 311 side.
Thank you.
Starting to break away. Good.
Yeah, the biggest problem was they bought out a bunch of companies and just never connected them correctly. So there's a lot of disconnects between the systems that you don't see until you're well into it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Communications. One thing I wanted to point out as Larry's walking up, the capital outlay that you see on the chart to the right, it's a representation of the capital. There's 57 projects, almost forgot the number, 57 projects that you see on that handout, divvied up by the respective department. So I just wanted to point that out.
All right. So every year for the budget process, I'm asked, how much do you need? And I pretty much say more of the same. And so that's pretty much true in this case. And we usually don't spend all of our budget, but currently myself full-time and Jenny part-time is a two-person operation. And we do communications, but then a lot more. If you could go ahead and go to the next slide. Yep. So going to continue all the things that we always do. So that's the website, it's the news magazine, we do the weekly e-news, but we're also the committee liaison for some very active committees. So that includes the EIC, which is not only attending and participating in managing meetings, but also doing projects and things like that. Same thing's true for Sister City. Anyone who's involved with Sister City knows that that can be a lot of work. So it's all of that. And then there's all the events, which there's a lot to talk about, and I won't, but we're all aware that we have a lot that we do here in town. Communications has also historically been a place where special assignments comes our way. So over the years, been in charge of Stormwater Committee, and then the 100th Anniversary Committee, and Illinois Reads twice, 2 different times, and things like that. And because special activities come through us, we're often strapped. We're like, you know, we already have a full workload, and then there's more. So with the conversation about what we're looking at for next year, we are looking to add staff in the communications division, and some of the things that are happening for the upcoming year. So piggybacking off of the strategic plan, I think we're going to be looking at getting the branding initiative restarted. So that's going to be something we're looking at. Also, full redesign of the website, and that'll be a many-month process. But by the end of next year, we'll have a brand new website that's going to look better than ever. Something that was also new this past year, in May, the Vision and Vibe Festival wasn't really even a concept. It was mostly a concept, and then but a month later in June we put it into action, and 3 months later we had it, and that's looking to continue. So that's additional things that comes through our department that we work on. And then I think we're going to continue some conversations, or grow some conversations that we had in the past about mural program. I think there's a lot of interest in doing murals in the community, and there's money budgeted for that. But now we're going to put it into action. And then with Mayor Nero's request, more interest in just getting more word out to the public. So that's social media, it's everything. And so with that we want to expand that, but with that's more workload, and that's the reason for the consideration for additional staff. And I think that's a lot. Any questions?
Can we go back one? Right there. Your operating expenses are going up around $80,000. Is that for the website and the branding?
I don't think so. I think is that for the staffing part?
Well, the murals is a big piece of that. I think there's the murals that Larry talked about is a big piece. I think that's $50,000 in the budget alone is just for the mural program.
Okay.
And I will also say, in the figure that shows the 2025 is what's projected, not necessarily what's budgeted. And so one of the things that Larry talked about is they often will come in under budget, and so we have money in there if we need some additional graphic design and some of those other pieces, that we only use it if we need it. And so this year we haven't used it, but we're still budgeting for it in case we need it the following year.
I would add, like, in the last 6 months to a year, right, the communication, we always get hammered on it, right, but it's never been better, and it's bigger and better, and it's in more demand. So I support the growth there, in that we've got a comp plan, a strategic plan, and all these things that require communication and meetings and stuff. And the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 times with fire department headquarters, right, we asked them to step up and do more, and get the word out, and all of these things. And because of that, I think that that contributed, in my mind, outside of getting people to look at the facility over there, it contributed to getting the support and the buy-in to make that project possible, right? Because communication is always the Achilles heel in everything, right? And transparency and letting the people know what's going on. So
one of the things that I think are maybe an opportunity for improvement, to kind of quash some of the complaints that are out there, is to keep the public notified if we're having construction projects. I know there was probably a missed opportunity for Quincy of getting regular updates saying this is where we're at. It's on the website, but to tell people to go to the website to figure out, to find the news that they're looking for, rather than us being more proactive and using social media or using an avenue that we're outwardly informing folks of where we're at on stuff, or hey, we fell behind on the Trabi thing because of this issue or that issue, versus what the hell's going on with Trabi? If we're forthright with that, you can kind of diffuse a lot of the angst from people not knowing what's going on in the community. And hats off to the whole staff of the Vision and Vibe Fest throwing that together in a matter of a few months. But I did hear that people were like, we didn't even hear about it until we got that magazine, the community. So, Larry, what do you think as far as improvements that would be made to get more word out? Do you have more social media presence, or what do you think? Because even if you've got flashing neon signs, people are still going to say they didn't know about it.
And that is the challenge, because I think our department does produce a lot of news. We get the word out, but then it's just a matter of did people see it? And we live in an interesting era right now where, for instance, Westmont doesn't really have a newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Like no one, 20 years ago, there's probably a newspaper that everybody turned to and read, and that's where you got your news. And now it's like social media or word of mouth. And you're also at a point where you just don't know to trust it whatsoever. Someone says, "Oh, this is happening tomorrow," and you find out it happened last week or whatever it might be. It's a very interesting time that we're living in terms of communication. At least on our side, from the village, we're all about integrity and making sure that information is accurate. And we're pretty quick. I mean, we're not like someone who's watching a fire and posting it right there and then. There's a lot of people who want that, and I understand that people are compelled to have that interest, that desire to know immediately. We have to wait just a little bit longer. We have to wait and get the information accurate, and then we post. And so we're just a little bit behind the person who's right on top of it and gets it wrong, but we get it right. And so it's a little bit later. We do the best we can. But that is the question, and so I think in an upcoming admin finance committee meeting, we're going to talk about this issue in terms of what are we doing currently, what can we do more about social media and just communication in general, and also add to it some media training for all of us. So.
Yeah, that is hard, because I do hear a few times, "Oh, we didn't know about that," and I'm like, but it's weird because people are on their phone all the time, but yet they won't go to a web page or Facebook to look at the Westmont page, because people are like, "Oh, put signs out," nobody likes political signs, but they're like, put a sign out and stick them all over. But it's it's kind of
well, and there's some truth to that. I mean, in our research in the past, we have found that much of the public in the community reads those electronic bulletin boards, and that's where they find out a lot of news. So we put as many things as we can up there that's for the entire public. Obviously, you're dealing with 4 lines of text, right? And then we're referring them to the website. But this is a very good product.
Mm-hmm.
This comes out 6 times a year, goes to every address in the community. So if someone chooses not to read it, that's on them. They have the opportunity to. And then everything that's in here is repeated 4 or 5 times through social media, website, other avenues. So
those are nice that you send those out. Those are good.
Mm-hmm.
Off of what Trustee Barker said, I have seen a major improvement over the last 6 months.
Absolutely, never better.
Yeah.
Since the paper
Did you
went
hear
away.
that, Jim?
Got it.
Yeah.
I was writing the note right here.
You were giving him the note.
Yeah, between you and Jim making this a reality and empowering them to do this, it's made a big difference.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Alan and I were just chatting. I wanted to bring up, because we're not talking a lot about convention tourism specifically, but although we're adding more folks or one person to the communications department, a lot of these things are funded through convention tourism, which doesn't come from the general fund. So it's just an innovative way, because a lot of this does bring people to town, right? I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so the mural program, the events that are listed on your slide, there's more events than just that. There's 20 other events that the village hosts. All that is coming out of Commission Tourism. It's planned in the budget, so it's staff time. That's staff for Public Works, Fire, and Police. All the staff efforts to make those events happen are all planned to come out of the Commission Tourism budget.
What is the mural program? Just at a,
The idea was that there's potential businesses where we could, instead of maybe painting windows, we upgrade where a lot of towns you see, and they look really nice, like professional murals on, let's say, the side of Nature's Best, or the side of Quincy Station, or whatever, some theme-related, professionally done artwork that is kind of the thought. You know, help bring more people down. It just gives us a little bit more character, and I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of communities that do it, and a lot of interest from the public, especially at the Vision and Vibe Fest. I got personally on folks want to give it a try. And so we have the funds there through convention tourism. We got to do it the right way. You can't just have me go with a spray can and do like my 1S I know how to do from grade school. But
who would approve the mural?
But it's all part of the program, and
Oh,
the
okay.
communications would have to manage. But I think it's a lot TBD. This is just the beginning. Is that fair to say, Larry? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now, also, I know that there is a process with the electronic signs. We've been through that before, so a lot of those are limited on who and what can be put on those signs. But I know folks like, towns like Bolingbrook, I've looked up, and they just have like a sheet that you fill out, and then it's approved through through their village on what, as far as can be put on those signs. But I've seen everything from restaurant ads to, Lions, Knights of Columbus things. So I'm not quite sure, again, what the restrictions are, but again, ways of being able to post community events freely might be something we might want to look into too, because that seems to be kind of a roadblock or obstacle. So there's a lot of service organizations doing great stuff on a monthly basis here, but sometimes you don't get that acceptance from the community because they just don't know about it. So any help there would be great.
Very good.
Good things.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We're knocking them out. A couple left.
Next up, community development.
Couple left.
Thank you, Board. So what's before you is community development. So we don't get to talk about actually everyone that we have there very often. So I've actually got 11 full-time people there. We're actually 2 short right now, so we're looking at hiring 2 positions. We are looking for 1 new part-time code enforcement officer. If you want to know why, it's the village as it ages, needs more attention. When I first started here, I started in code enforcement. For example, Oakwood was the neighborhood you only had to drive through and look for someone that left their garbage out too long. Now homes in Oakwood are starting to get to that age that if you're not taking care of them, that's really starting to show. So we do think that we can improve the community with a little more time, a little more foot time out there to take care of that. As to department expenses, so you will notice that in operating expenses, there is a significant increase there. So I want to describe what that increase is. One I'll talk about on this sheet, the other I'll talk about on the next one. So basically, the way that we run our operating budget, we pay our consultants out of this budget. When we have a new big project coming online, we put money in this budget to try to cover some of those upfront costs. So we do have One North Gas, which is, we hope that will come to fruition this year. So there's actually an extra $750,000 that is in the budget for the what-if scenario. So when the project like that comes in the door, we have to get it start processed by consultants. We get bills from those consultants. In theory, we get reimbursed for most of those, but when we're working on a joint project in a TIF district, we quite don't know where all those negotiations will land, so we kind of put that money in this budget. The other thing, if Alan, he's already on the next slide, is special projects for next year. You've already heard several times the comprehensive plan. There is $150,000 in that, which is for the comprehensive plan. So those 2 things equate to the big bump that you see there. Quickly, I'll just go over some of the core processes that we're doing every day. So in the course of a year, we're processing over 1,500 permits. That's like 3,300 reviews, 3,300 inspections. We do a lot of those in-house. We get over 1,300 inspections done on code enforcement. We process over 700 cases. 50 of those cases actually go to our local adjudication, so that's our local court. And we usually see fees and remedies coming out of there. Planning and zoning, that's a disappointing number of processing 20 to 30 variances, but actually my two planners are stellar in their customer service. They're taking calls all day long from residents, from developers. They're asking questions. They're trying to make projects better from the very first phone call. So they're doing a lot of work there. And then on the side, we're administrating the downtown incentive program. We're processing FOIAs. The other things we're doing in 2026, we worked really hard on a new zoning ordinance. We created some new downtown zoning districts and new public zoning districts. We need to start rezoning some of those properties. So you'll see a big effort there. And then luckily Glenn covered the last 2 points that we're looking to implement. Obviously, code enforcement is very much integrated into the 311 system. So it's getting that system online, getting it tailored to what we need. And then a newer, refined online permitting system. Luckily, the new village manager and IT have been very receptive to some of my criticisms on the current programs we have. They've listened and they said maybe it's time to look at a better system. We hear the complaints or the criticisms on the online permitting. We would like to be mostly online with all of our systems. We want to eliminate as much paper as possible, and implementing those systems is a lot of work. So all of our divisions are going to be working diligently to get that done for you. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
I just have a question, not that, I get like for code violations, but like, obviously we have a large population of older people, so like, I don't, depending on what the code violation is, do we give them a period of time, like to fix something, you know what I mean? Just because like, I know for me, like, you know, a lot of people don't have like X amount in their bank to fix a project, and that could be why it's ailing. Or do we offer other suggestions or work with churches that might like do volunteer work that like might like go out on a Saturday and help fix, you know, somebody's porch or what, or like, are there programs out there like that? Or
So I'll try to systematically answer your question. First off, we try to treat all of our code cases the same so that we're not playing any favorites or not being mean to anybody.
Sure.
So we always try to figure out what the code violation is and what is a fair assessment of time to remedy it. So my code officers aren't going to go out there and say, well, you have a broken window, please fix that by tomorrow. No, they say, what is a reasonable amount of time to get that window fixed? Do we hear the reasons why someone can't get it fixed, which is what you're kind of alluding to? Yes,
Yeah.
We hear that all the time. Sure. Do we try to be sensitive to that while still holding to our tenets of treating everyone the same? We do. We are just getting into the who can we refer you to help? So historically, we have not had those resources. Usually we refer them to someone with the county. I wish there were more resources or better resources.
Sure.
We are getting better with that, but there still aren't a lot of programs that are out there. So I'd encourage everyone at this diocese, you know, have a lot of pull in this town. So whether it's the Boy Scouts, you know, one of our local organizations, trying to find resources for especially people trying to age in place, that don't have family to rely on. That's always a need that's out there.
Sure.
And have I seen us take a person that we're very sympathetic to adjudication? Yes, because sometimes in the case I'm thinking about, the person had bought a house where the previous owner had taken out walls that were structural, and the home was collapsing. The fire department had gone in there for a service call and found that it wasn't even safe. Do we want to, you know, have to, to go through those situations, we always have to measure safety. So it's never a perfect scenario. We try to be as sensitive as we can while still, being firm with the fact that a remedy is needed.
Sure.
I think right now, in this era, we're seeing a lot, especially in our older part of downtown. The homes are reaching 100 years old. If you know the history of Westmont, people came from downtown to build their own homes. They weren't all home builders. We have a high water table with a lot of water in basements or cracked foundations. A lot of those homes are reaching the end of their life. And, people still try to put Band-Aids on them. Sometimes you just can't bandage it any further. And so code enforcement also tries to motivate, maybe it's time to move on. If you can't take care of the house, maybe it's time to figure out a better solution. So it's very intermixed. We try our best. It's perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, and I'll add the extra part-timer is a good thing because it is an investment for the village and we can afford it. The thing with code enforcement is you can't do it and then throttle back and then start again. It's a long-term battle, and the extra resources, I'm with you 100%, I think are going to be received pretty well in this town.
And trying to be efficient does not equate to being friendly, because you have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So the extra person helps us, give us a little more time to try to be a little bit more informative to people and a little bit more helpful. So.
I mean, prior to sitting in this chair, a lot of the horror stories I heard what came from your department as far as code enforcement. It's never a friendly thing to be, your grass is too high or you need to do this or need to do that. But most recently, you're probably the department I hear most of the compliments about as far as customer service. So I think you guys are actively making a difference, and it's being reflected.
We have some really great
businesses saying it was easy to open their new business or move their business. You're starting to hear good things, and we got to remember, we're not doing our businesses and residents a favor. They're kind of doing us a favor by investing in the community. So I love the way that I'm hearing that you guys are just easy to work with, and
I appreciate that, and I'll let my staff know they work very hard at trying to make sure that they give a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Thank you.
Joe.
All right.
Public Works.
Moving right along.
Hello again.
See you, man.
You can see our department's stats up there. Currently, we are having 3 vacancies in our department. One forestry position, which we have someone on board starting on the 24th. We have a vacancy in the underground division where we had interviews today, and that was promising. And then we have a vacancy in the street division that we'll also be trying to fill here as quickly as possible, just with winter coming, to have a full staff for snow fighting. So we also are requesting 3 new hire positions, 2 in forestry and 1 in underground. The forestry positions one will be fully offset by a cost savings, and the other will be partially offset. They are to handle downtown watering and some of our ecological and natural area management. And then the underground position will be to increase our efforts in storm sewer cleaning and ensure that we can stay on schedule for that part of our storm sewer system maintenance. So you can see our summary there. Next slide is about our core services. All the things that you do every day, you need Public Works. So every time you turn on the tap, every time you drive on the street, every time you walk down, walk to school, all of that is Public Works. All the snow activities, anytime you go to a community event, it's all Public Works. So we perform all those tasks that improve quality of life for residents and businesses. We provide safe, reliable drinking water with our water main replacement program, water tower project, our direct impacts to that. Our well-maintained streets, so snow plowing, potholes, all of that. Our natural environment, so we have a beautiful tree canopy. We have a lot of well-maintained, beautiful natural areas, medians, as well as our dark sky lighting initiative. We also have a vibrant downtown, streetscape, various community events that we support with traffic control, road closures, cleanup, and other support during those. So I want to kind of draw attention to, under safe and reliable infrastructure, you met Greg Ulrich, our new village engineer. So he's going to be providing a lot of technical support for all of our stormwater projects, improving customer service and response times for developers and residents, additional horsepower to execute our CIP, which, as you saw, is very ambitious, and also heading up a lot of our technology efforts. So leveraging technology is one of the things that enables us to do more with less. So he's going to be heading up our technology efforts for GIS and asset management. So our asset management will allow us to better focus our resources for maximum benefit for our residents. So we're going to be heavily leveraging that aspect this year. I also want to draw attention to the water system. So with our rate study, which we talked about earlier, we will be doing 1% system replacement annually, which will increase the reliability of our system. We also will be focusing on lead service line replacements. This will be mandated starting in 2027, which we will have to replace 15% a year. We've gotten a head start on that. We have a voluntary replacement program, and we've applied for SRF funding, and our project plan approval is pending. The lead service line replacement funding through SRF has a 0% interest rate, and if you qualify for principal forgiveness, you can get up to 50% principal forgiveness. So I just want to give a shout out to Brian Bussey. He's been heading that up, dealing with the loan applications, wrote the project plan in-house. He wrote that entire document, so I just wanted to give a shout out to him. And then finally, in 2026, we'll also be focusing heavily on sidewalk projects. So that's both in response to board and resident feedback, as well as to support safe routes to school and infrastructure budget guiding principles. So we have a lot of sidewalk work done by contractors, and we've also, thanks to Melissa Brendel's efforts, we've been able to increase our in-house capacity quite a bit to allow us to address specific concerns quickly. So our contractor program will be geographically focused. As I mentioned earlier, it helps lower costs when they're not mobilizing and demobilizing all over town and they stay in one neighborhood. And then we'll also be constructing some new sidewalk connections at 59th and Richmond and Westview Hills School. So it's kind of a wrap up of our highlight reel for 2026.
I saw a safe step today, grinding away.
Yep.
I love seeing those trucks, they're great.
And they do a good job, too. I mean,
Yes, they are very clean.
yeah, as being a walker, it's really nice because you don't have to worry, and you can always tell when they've done it. So I do want to say kudos to you all for that, and Safe Step as well, because I think it's a great, great program.
Question on, we know what it costs to put in or resurface a street. What does it cost for a sidewalk?
Our bid price from our last program, which I mentioned before is geographically focused, was $8 a square foot. That's a very, very good price. We're hoping to be able to get a similar price on our next contract.
Amy, can you talk about the storm water or storm sewer maintenance and what the extra person, how quickly they will get through the whole system?
Yeah, so we're trying to get through it once every 5 years. And of course, there are other areas that receive maintenance more regularly just because of we observe issues there or something happened or we've gotten a complaint. But we're going to try to increase that frequency up. And that's going to be part of Jeff Bonk's crew is going to do that in conjunction with Greg to maximize the effort in that, and that we can have that Vector truck going out every day, fully staffed,
Nice.
and can be jetting those sewers and getting through the system a lot faster.
Do you think with that we'll still have to outsource additional help, or is it all we're gonna have enough to be able to do it in-house?
We're going to try to do it in-house.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to outsource. Any other
Great,
questions?
thank you.
Great work.
Thank you.
Fire.
The Fire Boys.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We're a team. Takes two of us to replace it. That was a stepbrother's comment right there. Right back at him.
Well, if
Good
he's
evening, everybody.
listening, The chief's listening, we upgraded tonight, right?
Yes, he's on. I'm sure everybody knows he's listening. He's checking in on us for
I'm
sure.
sure he is.
Doing some great networking down there at the
Yeah.
International Fire Chiefs Conference.
Yeah, sure.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Just to give a quick talk on the slide here, we're currently ticking towards 80 part-time on our roster. We do have quite a few people on leaves of absence and also injuries not due. We have one injury on Westmont that occurred, but all the rest of the injuries are not associated with working at Westmont. So that kind of ticks us down a little bit. And we'll talk more about the new hire for full-time training officer in the next slide, please. All right, real quick, I'd like to bring to your attention the run volume summary there. But more importantly, what I wanted to talk about was what the future 2026 holds for us with this new medical building going up on Blackhawk. So the Dooley building that we have seen on Ogden has caused us to increase our call volume there from 68 last year to 83 this year already. So that's a pretty significant increase in call volume for there. And we expect it to continue to rise. As now, not only does Westmont have the nursing homes, now we're bringing more sick from other towns into our medical facilities in town. So we're going to look anywhere from 80 to 100 new additional calls per year just on the new medical center on Blackhawk alone. So we're foreseeing that, and generally want our staffing for our third ambulance to be more available so that we can deal with that increase in call volume. Next, I'd like to talk about the new hire for the full-time training officer. And I just want to highlight that this role will be a full-time command level position. This update aligns with our ongoing commitment to maintain ISO 1 and to be CFAI accredited. And it also keeps our standards and addresses increase in state and national standards and training requirements that we have to keep up with. The benefits to the village. It enhances our operational readiness and risk reduction across all of our working shifts. It provides full-time oversight of our training compliance and personal safety. It ensures compliance with the Illinois Office of State Fire Marshal and IDPH continuing education requirements. This supports retention and morale throughout a structured professional development program. This will strengthen the department's accreditation, as we said, and ISO standing by maintaining documentation, accuracy, and certification compliance. This positions the department for future staffing growth, and leadership succession planning. The training officer position ensures that every firefighter and paramedic receives consistent, certified, and well-documented training meeting the highest state and national standards while continuing to protect both our personnel and the residents of Westmont. Any questions on that?
Just out of curiosity, for the medical centers, do they get, I'm assuming they're building piece taxes, but do they get charged for every time they call the fire department?
They do not. They do not, but the person that we end up transporting does get charged.
Okay.
Is there a timeline on that Blackhawk, when that's going to be up and running?
December 8th, I think.
December 8th. It's a good day. It's the day I sell my house in Chicago. All right, next I'd like to bring up DC Frank to talk about the new fire station.
All right, hello everybody. So I get the pleasure of updating you on where we're at with the new fire station, what's going to happen in the next couple months, and what's going to happen next year. We're going to come before you guys on December 11th for the Public Works Committee meeting. 8:45, and Leopardo Construction will come in that day, and they will give you an updated preliminary budget on where we're at that point, what we expect cost to possibly be. It'll be a preliminary budget. The budget that Director Altick talked about coming up in spring, that'll be that maximum guaranteed price. But this will give us a start to show us where we're at and then where we need to cut or change the budget from there. Also at that meeting, 845 is going to give you some proposed outside elevations. You got a bit of a sneak peek in the PowerPoint of what we're thinking it may look like, but we're going to bring it to you guys more fully so that you can see it and give us your opinions on it. What's going to happen right now or coming in the future, we're expecting to move out of Station 183 May 1st. and we'll be in our temporary locations at that point. Those temporary locations will be Tower 183 is going to go to our north side station, and we're currently building bunk rooms there that'll house them temporarily at that station until the new station is built. Fire administration and fire prevention are going to go to the old water department on 39 West Burlington, and we are working with IT and Public Works to set up office spaces for all of us there. Engine 183, Medic 183 are going to remain on the south side of the village. The Public Works Department has worked very well with us. The 325 South Wilmette, where they had their old Public Works building, they had plans to build a building there at some point. They've pushed and moved up plans so that we can use the building they were going to build as our temporary firehouse. We talked about core services. That's our core services, providing EMS and fire services. And that was one of our big things, is we had to keep it south of the tracks. We couldn't move people around because the tracks are an obstacle for us. So we wanted to make sure whatever we did, it was on the south side of the tracks. When we had our public hearings, that's what we heard from the public, was one of their big pushes. What is going to happen? How are you guys going to do this? Well, working together with Public Works, they're going to build that building. And along with that and a trailer, we're going to have that as our temporary firehouse. We'll house an engine ambulance there, which means we cover fire and EMS on the south side. No interruptions, no delays, just like we operate now. We looked around. If there's something about this project that I stared at the ceiling in my bedroom and went like, how are we doing this? It was, how are we going to cover the south side? Where are we going to house people? So we've been working on it with Public Works for quite a while now of what's the possibilities? What can we do? So we looked at renting temporary firehouses. There's actually companies that build those for you. Temporary firehouses, temporary living quarters. And when we got prices back on that, we were looking at renting facilities for $700,000 for 15 months. So not a great option for us. Cooperating with Public Works, Director Rees and Virgil have been great with us. We are going to build something that we're going to use and they're going to have, and the village is going to have down the road. So I really think it's a great way to cooperate there and figure that out. What else is going on? We had our first weekly meeting this morning with 845 and IT and Public Works, and we're going to do that every week from now until May. We're going to meet. We're going to focus on the budget, focus on what's coming up next, and that way we're going to keep our budget in line. We're going to find problems when they're small, and that's how we're going to get this project to go where it goes. That's May, the weekly meetings like that. Based on what we're going to do, we're going to develop another calendar when we come into construction. So we'll be able to share those with you so you guys can kind of keep up with what we're doing and when we're doing it. Storage is a big thing for us. How are we going to store some of our equipment that we're keeping and moving in? So right now we've got 2 cargo containers that we are going to keep on site. So we will be able to just move it out of the firehouse before they demolish it, keep it on site there, and then move it back in when we're ready to move back in. We also have some space at Public Works that at the water department where we're going to store some stuff there that we have to have more access to more quickly. As I said, there's a schedule of work that we've developed and we're going to revise as we go along till May. And unless you guys have questions about it, that's where we're at with the new building. Thank you.
Very good.
I will add on that, I think we are going to be doing a news release just to keep the public informed with what we're doing and let them know that we're going to be having more discussions at the December 11th meeting.
Yep.
So I know that was when we started doing this project, we wanted to make sure the public stayed informed, and so just to let you all know, we're still planning to continue doing that.
Great.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
I think we're down to the last group.
No pressure, Chief. The last one.
Last but not least, yes. 2 minutes and 25 seconds. I think we're going to be done. So just an overview of the department. We we're allocated for 47 people. That's made up of both sworn and civilian staff. Currently, we are short 6, which is an all-time high, maybe. I don't know. It's a continuous thing. It's a broken record, I guess, around here that we're short people, but we're trying. Our staff's divided between operations and administrative staff. They're broken down in different ways, but our administrative staff consists of a lot of with the detectives who average working about 150 cases per year, and our records division, which is another part of our administrative staff, which manages a lot of the court case requests, handles a lot of FOIAs now. I'd like to mentioned that our FOIAs have over doubled from last year because of the body-worn cameras. But we continue to push and through this just to, provide that transparency that we're all about. They also records response to all the local requests from DCFS and local police departments. On the operations side, it's mainly consists of the patrol division. Our patrol guys handle about 20,000 plus service calls annually. That does not even include the 7,000 traffic stops that they do annually to help keep our roadways safe. When it comes to our expenses pretty much align with all our goals, and one of our main goals is for us is just kind of like the fire, though we're providing a public safety. But along with that, our goal is so we can keep on achieving this, is to get to full staffing, provide our training, and equip our officers and our civilian staff. I just want to go over just a little bit of an overview of what our expenses have come from. In the budget itself, 81% of our budget is our personnel costs. That is just, we pay our people good to do a good job, and then that also includes, which is mentioned all the time, our pension. So then when we go to our operating costs, we really go down. That operating costs consist of 10% of our budget, which covers professional services, training, equipment, uniforms, and essential operational tools. But 35% of the operating cost itself is for our dispatch center. And then we go for capital, which is 9%. 9% of the capital is of our total budget, but that includes funds from the DEA fund, the vehicle replacement plan, and our capital projects. The DEA fund itself, if I cover that a little bit, is 6% of our total budget. It is composed of seized funds, which is not from tax revenue. So it's a complete savings to the village when we can use DEA funds. The only bad thing about DEA funds, they are subject to strict federal restrictions on the use. We use them when we can to offset stuff that we want to get and need to get, but it doesn't always fall within the budget. So, and we're not allowed to actually have anything that can go against what we've already budgeted. I'm gonna, after a discussion with the manager, we're gonna pull a little item off of one of the other slides. Alan, I don't know if he is aware of this one yet, but we'll throw a little curveball at him. From slide 52. Expenses for safety. We were going to talk a little bit about the additional LPRs for the downtown.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
So currently we have 8 license plate reader cameras in town, and they consist of, they're usually on the more or less the entryways to the village on the north and the south side. We are wanting to put cameras downtown now, and to do that would require, of course, more money and approval from the board. So at this time, we were kind of wanting to poll the board and kind of get your opinion on what you think about putting additional cameras in the downtown area. I don't know if everybody's aware of exactly all the uses for the cameras. We use them for about 20,000 hits on the cameras a year. This current year, they give us hits for warrants. We use them just recently for a stalking case where we were able to prove that an offender was in an area where they should not be, harassing and stalking a former spouse. And then it also allows us to monitor these people to keep them that they're not coming into the area. Orders of protection can be monitored through those cameras, and it gives our officers hits when people come into the areas. I mentioned there's warrants. There's also, we've used it where there's been thefts or robberies or incidents like that, where we have vehicle descriptions or plates. We can see where they went in the area to help track the individuals and the offenders. And, see, maybe they're local, maybe they're not, maybe they're driving through the area. But there's also, other jurisdictions have the same cameras where we can follow their path and help identify these and locate these people. We can put out alerts on whether maybe it's a burglary crew in the area or people that are working different areas where, we can put bolos on their cars, and if they start to come in the area, it gives us an alert so we can start monitoring the areas that are getting hit. So there's a lot of positive aspects to these, but excuse me, with the idea of them being downtown, we kind of wanted to, it's not like it's on the outskirts of town, but it's more down where we have, you know, our businesses, a lot of residential residents going to and from. So we kind of wanted to get, if there's any questions from you on
Aren't
those.
they just the small cameras? Like, they're not, it's not a big,
No, they're not big. I would say they're probably, I mean, just not actually, they're probably like this big on a pole. They're not, and they're very, there's nothing aesthetically ugly about them, I guess you could say. They're just like a little black box on a pole.
I love those things. I mean, from a prevention standpoint to solving crimes after something unfortunately happens, I think the technology is worth it, assuming that the officers get it all automatically and we're not just ignoring it. I've heard some departments, oh my God, it's so much we don't even look at it. Like, you know, if it's valuable information, if I was a police officer, I'd want to know where someone was at what time and have that extra bit of intel. So I think that potential safety for $16,000 to me is a no-brainer, but
And it's also, I'd like to mention it because there's also the question, you know, there's always the, you know, we're always watching and stuff like that. It's not the case with these cameras. We don't sit there and monitor these cameras 24/7. It's more of an alert basis. And even for us to search and review, there is a strict restrictions on what we're doing. We actually log everything we're doing. There's a strict audit process that we go through. So it's just not, you know, I want to see where my wife or my husband went yesterday, you know, did they go straight to the grocery store type of thing. No, it's, we put in there for audit purposes what the reasons were, you know, investigations reasons, and it's logged on who went into the cameras. So it's not just a free-for-all with these.
I was gonna say Big Brother's watching you, right? But no, out of curiosity, obviously if every car's going through and getting, does it, like, do you guys have like license plate numbers that are flagged and then that brings that up? Or do you literally have to go through?
If we have a reason to enter a vehicle, then that license plate would be entered in. But we have to have a reason to enter it in. So it's just not randomly.
No, that's what I mean, sort of, though, how would you, like, if like Downers Grove told you about a car, you would enter that license plate
Well,
in?
they could enter it in, and then we would still get their entered in vehicles too. So we get hits from other surrounding jurisdictions.
So the camera doesn't alert you, you go in the system and type in it, and then the camera responds, or how?
Both.
Okay.
So we can enter.
I was trying to get at.
So they have the
alert,
same
like-
question.
Yeah, so we can enter in stuff, and it will give us alerts on our stuff, but then we also get alerts for, like, if it's a warrant, we'll get an alert for that. So if a vehicle passes through, our officer drives by a vehicle and it picks up on different things, we can get alerts on those things also.
And you said where are they at currently?
We have them on Ogden and 63rd Street and 67th.
I did not know
Cascade.
that.
Yes.
some private homeowners have them too, right? Like
There are on
35th, Tartan Lakes,
Tartan Lakes, yes.
and some others, because privately you could buy them and they still
Yes,
integrate
yes.
with the police.
So Cass is really the only area that you really, a major traffic area that you don't have them.
Yes, correct.
Sure, they're pretty much invisible on Ogden and 63rd Street because only cars are flying.
I didn't know about it.
It's really not a question to the board about the cost. The cost is minimal. The question is the perception of having cameras where pedestrians are going to be passing by them, you know, daily.
Like all the time,
and
so
then
that
calling
would
you
flag
guys to say,
everything that
why
happens
are
on
these
the
cameras here?
walkway.
So really, it's your comfort level for answering those questions. So Chief laid out the reason that we use them, and they've been highly successful. And, you know, honestly, there's so many cameras everywhere now. People just used to be on them anyway. But, you know, 10 years ago, it would have been an uncomfortable conversation to have.
These are specifically for auto, or is
These
it
are only for
people,
autos.
pedestrians walking down
Yeah,
the
no,
street?
they only trigger on autos, on license plates. Unfortunately, Illinois still has front and rear license plate requirements, so that helps, you know, increase the likelihood that we're going to hit. So is everybody comfortable with it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have issue. I mean, if they already exist, what's a couple more?
Yeah, there you go.
Might as well cover us all, right?
That works. Yeah, that's all. We'll put them around a potted plant or something like that.
Anything else? Questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, back to me.
All right, bring us home.
So, number of slides to go through. I think a lot of these, we've already kind of talked about a lot of these expenses and programs. So I think hopefully the next this group of slides will go much faster than what we have already. So we've already talked about a lot of these expenses or programs in other avenues. We're going to kind of flip them and talking about them under various themes. So the first theme I want to point out is planning for success. So next year in the budget we have working on developing a new comprehensive plan, a downtown plan, strategic plan that we're already working on. This is a carryover or bleed over into next year, and then branding marketing plan, and then fire department full-time planning and analysis. At some point, there's a potential that we're going to have to perhaps make the leap and go to a full-time fire department. So rather than being reactive, we should be proactive. This is to hire a consultant to help us walk through. That's a huge project, and there's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we understand so we have everything kind of in a row for when we do have to make this move. Are we going to make this move next year or 2 years? Probably not. Could it be in 5 years, 6 years? Maybe. So this is to help us so that we have all of our ducks in a row and so we know what we're doing when that day comes. And the last thing I'll point out is land purchases. It's a pretty big number. I'll just say this is kind of what if. This is just to make sure that if budgetarily we're set up in case there's an opportunity that we need to buy property. So this could be for economic development. This could be for stormwater. I think retention might be the right word. Stormwater efforts. So you just never know. So this is just to make sure that we're nimble and just in case something great opens up and we need to act. I will say this doesn't mean that because it's in the budget we have freedom to do what we want. These are all things that are going to come before the board anyway. Anytime we buy property, we have to bring those before the board.
Because I was going to say with that, like, if like Amy's team needs to fix more sidewalks or something, or streets, I mean, like, should we lower the budget on land? I mean, like what, right? You said we had to choose and pick what's important.
I think this is more for those great opportunities. It's not.
But I mean, if we're setting aside that money, but for expenses, but if, you know, we need to fix more streets, should we just like lower that what if opportunity?
This is also like an investment in the community though, because this money will be used to generate more revenue down the road. So it's like, it's picking priorities again, right? But this could be used to raise funds to fix more streets long term.
No, I sort of get it, but.
I'll say a lot of this is in funds that are geared towards economic development. The bulk of this is in the TIF funds. Sure, sidewalks is an eligible cost as long as the sidewalks are within the TIF. But, you know, you want to kind of shoot your shot, I think, more economic development when you have funds that are geared more towards economic development. Next slide is professional development. Pretty big, shocking number of how many hours staff are trained here at the village. So the budget for 2026 anticipates over 35,000 hours of staff training. You break those numbers down by public safety, that's police and fire, over 300 hours per person. Start to get over to village hall staff and public works, the number is 41, which to me is still an impressive number. Just to kind of put that in context for me, if you're a CPA, you have to have 40 hours of continuing education to keep your CPA license. It's 40 hours. And this is what our typical employee here at the village is getting. We have a lot of people with some very high credentials that have invested a lot of time and effort into themselves, a lot of time and effort into keeping their skills sharp here at the village.
So I guess I made a note too is, are we doing enough on certification, training, enhanced education?
Are we doing enough? There's no limit to how much you can do, is what we're capable of doing. I can tell you that, as I put in my email, professional development to me personally is a extremely important function that we we perform. You see the talent level.
Well, absolutely. That's where it came from. I appreciate
Yeah.
what you said in your email.
A lot of this is, there's mandates to maintain certifications, so where you have to do it because otherwise you lose your licensure. On the police side, the Safety Act a few years ago mandated us to do even more training than we were already doing through, cultural competency or de-escalation or use of force, constitutional law. The Safety Act increased that number probably by added 50 hours of training either annually or biannually. And then think of all the different specialties within, just law enforcement specifically. I speak to that. So firearms, taser, use of force, all the things. So can we do more? Yeah, but do we physically have the time to do more? Probably not.
So I'm confident that, fire and police and public works are getting training. And then I'm thinking about everybody else. Is everybody else getting what they need to advance to a higher level, right? I see some very intelligent people out here.
Yeah, you've heard from them. I could say, I'll give you a community development example. We had an employee in community development that was working below her certification level. So we brought her up to where she needs to the talent level that she has, rather than letting her work below her capabilities. So identifying those types of situations and working through those is absolutely a mandate for myself and every department head in the room.
Perfect answer. Yet again.
That's why I keep my mouth shut most of the time.
Is it number 6 for us today?
I think so, yeah. Wait, let me look at this notepad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm running out of paper.
I just got the one sheet.
Facility improvements, this is a list of some of our noteworthy facility improvements for next year. Many of our facilities are getting old. Village Hall is pushing 25 years. Our police and fire station on the north end is pushing close to 30 years. So in order to make sure they function and meet our needs and continue to have the longevity that we need them to have, we're investing in a lot of these buildings for next year.
What was if you go back, what was that cold storage for? The Public Works cold storage, what is? Just curious.
Yeah, so this is the building on the current Public Works, the old Public Works facility site on the south end. This is to build a new building on that site. Long-term, it'll be used for Public Works for some of their equipment and to make sure we have continuity of operations, say, because if there's an issue on the train line, to be able to continue to operate if there would be a disaster. And in the short run, this would be used by fire to house some of their fire and ambulance equipment on that end of town. So we have the same level of operations that we have now while they're rebuilding the new fire station.
Is that a metal building?
Yeah, could you speak to the material that the buildings be made out of and construction?
Cardboard?
Yeah, it's a metal clear span building. So we're going to make it as attractive as we can with the budget that we have.
It was just the term cold storage that I was.
Yeah, it's not going to be climate controlled like this building is.
Yeah.
It's going to be warm enough that the diesel in the vehicles won't freeze, but it will not be climate controlled like
We're not storing-
an
we're not storing
occupied
produce.
building.
That was a quick answer, that's all I was just curious. I'm like, what are we hanging meat in there? What's
Yeah.
the?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
and
standard
it's
market, a little
Got to be
extension.
sprinkled too, so the water can't freeze in the sprinkler system.
Trying to raise money for roads.
The old one had a metal component too, didn't it?
Yeah.
That's where the leaks came from?
Yeah.
All right.
Trees and grounds, we talked about a lot of these. Continuing our efforts to plant trees, beautify the downtown. As Amy spoke to earlier, there's a couple of employees in the forestry division that are pretty much fully offset the savings that we save from hiring outside consultants. We save all those costs and provide more than a savings of what it's going to cost to actually hire these individuals. Safety, these are some of the programs for next year to expand upon some of their efforts in both police and fire. We already talked about some of these in terms of the license plate readers and hiring of new police officers and training officer in the fire department. But also we have improvements to some of the fire bunker gear within the fire department. Sidewalks. This is probably one of the larger programs and definitely a step up from what we've done in the last couple of years. Quite a big investment in this program for next year. That Safe Step is kind of that first item that you see. We're doubling those efforts in the 2026 budget. We're spending about $50,000 now. We're doubling those efforts next year in the budget. And just point out that last bullet point, we are, to expand upon these efforts, we are utilizing more monies from the Convention and Tourism. Through some legislative changes, we're able to spend 25% on economic development and infrastructure, as long as we're a member of the DuPage Visitors and Convention Bureau. So,
The Westview and Richmond, are there areas where we're putting whole new, where there is no sidewalk and we're putting sidewalk in? What was that area? Okay.
There's a lot of gaps in those two areas where they're very close to schools, and trying to fill in those gaps to provide better pedestrian access to schools, to Cass Avenue, other civic facilities.
Yeah.
Get the kids off the street.
And Amy, I believe that Westview 65th sidewalk, that covers that area where the resident kind of had called and expressed multiple issues of people saying they wanted to be able to walk down that area.
Yeah,
And I think
there's
that's
been a
the
lot
one
of
that asked
people
me to forward it
calling.
to the board. So this addresses that issue that they had, right?
Yep.
Okay.
roadways, we've had a long discussion tonight about roadways, spending $1.9 million in roadway construction next year. As we already pointed out, Des Moines is the main target area for construction next year. And listed under roadways, a lot to do at 1 North Cass. Next year, the plan is to remove or move that ComEd transmission line. We don't exactly know the cost. Current estimates are around $2 million. Hopefully it'll come in less than that, but we truly don't know what that number is going to be. This hopefully is a high-end number. We're hoping it'll come in much, hopefully, fingers crossed, much less than even what this $2 million mark will come.
Is that going to be in the summertime, that project, or
I
spring?
think a lot depends on ComEd. I think we're hopefully optimistic about kind of a spring, summer.
Early spring, hopefully.
And then, obviously that parking will go away in the spring?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
TBD. But yeah, there'll be impacts to traffic, things will be rerouted and all that if there's something happens there.
Oh.
Nothing's finalized, so we just don't know.
Sure, just kidding.
We're totally dependent on when ComEd can come out and do it. We're at their mercy.
Just as a reminder on this first one, roadway reconstruction, I know the residents in Des Moines aren't going to like to hear this, but before we decide to do curb and gutter, let's make sure we talk about that at the December Public Works Committee, so we aren't wasting design dollars and things like that. I think it would do us all a good service. Not that I don't want curb and gutters, I just, I feel like it's a bigger problem than just doing one at a time, and I want to make sure there's a path forward on it, and rather than just shotgunning it. Especially given the amount of roads we got to do resurfacing and the lack of funds for it. Before we spend $2 million, if that shaves X amount off, maybe it's the right decision. I don't know. I just want to talk about it.
Sure. Just what I want to point out is the Burlington Road reconstruction. Again, this is all part of that 1 North Cass, getting that development site shovel ready for a potential developer. I do want to point out these are not coming from funds that would typically house infrastructure. These are coming from our TIF funds. So the central TIF is paying the cost of, in the end, will pay the cost of these projects. I will say there's not a lot of money in the central TIF at this point in time, and it is borrowing from the long-range planning fund. There's $4 million plus transfer in the budget from the long-range planning fund. The long-range planning fund still ends the year with, I think, $6+ million, so it still ends up with healthy balances, but it is having to do some of the heavy lifting temporarily some of the projections that I put together, the TIF will be reimbursed. It'll take a little bit of while, probably like out in 2032, 2033. The TIF fund should be made whole, and we'll be able to reimburse some of the village's funds that have been paying for some of these costs early on. Lighting, continuing with our dark sky initiative. This is going to start, I believe, on the south end here of the downtown on the tracks. So we'll start that project next year. Stormwater, a lot of stuff going on here. As Amy already pointed out, the hiring of additional underground employees so we can expand our efforts with stormwater, alley work, storm sewer extensions, work at Oakmont, as well as Richmond and Grant. I will say it's a pretty good cross-section across town. It's not just limited to, say, one side of the tracks or one side of Cass Avenue. These are, to me, seem like they're fairly spread out across on both sides of the tracks, east and west of Cass Avenue.
For Lake Charles, we should make sure we revisit with DuPage County. I know there was funds at one point for a grant. Maybe, Amy, we got to revisit it with Sarah. I don't know if the new budget has it or not, but what's the worst they could tell us, right? Initially, it was like $500,000, I thought, so that's a big chunk of it.
Then I will just add with the stormwater, I know there's going to be some discussions at the December board meeting and possibly in the future about looking at stormwater and requirements for development, and are we at a good spot with that, and do we want to make some changes? And so I think kind of highlighting and seeing some of the stuff we've got put in the budget to be maintaining the village-wide stormwater, I think it's helpful to know as you prep for those kind of discussions about stormwater and its impact on development.
And just on that note, is it fair to say, off-budget topic, but we should have a professional recommendation on stormwater before the December meeting for the board to look at and review some recommendations from a professional firm. So that's small dollar investment, I think, had the underneath the manager's authority, so he did engage with that. So just a quick update on that.
You know, Mayor, since you brought that up, right? It's out there. I'm interested in, because I saw a little bit of the planning and zoning from last night, but I'm interested in identifying, you know, from the Christopher Burke, if that's our standard, right? I'm interested in identifying the problematic areas in Westmont that still need to be addressed. That we've done, we've identified them as problems in 2013 or 2014. And whether we address them or not is important, especially when there's, you know, ongoing stormwater discussions.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I don't know if the initial scope is, I know they're going to look at a lot of the improvements and maintenance and things that we've done. And I would imagine, and Amy, you probably know better than me, but part of their recommendation to us is going to include some of those troubled areas, because that's something we need to consider. I think that's what I got from the meeting we had, right? So that's probably part of what they're going to give us, and I'm sure our team knows most of the areas.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Water main improvements, as we've alluded to tonight, we're village is targeting 1% replacement of its water mains annually. Amy can correct me if I'm wrong. Next year's budget is targeting that North Park, Chicago, and Willard. I believe that's all in one general neighborhood, so we're kind of going in and trying to knock out that neighborhood and get out.
Can we talk about where that money comes from? So we know the other one, we don't have any money for roads, but do we have any additional money for water? Because 1% at a time, 100-year turn, what's the life expectancy on PVC, right? We used to have 0 breaks, now we have a few more and a few more and a few more, so it's the 90s we started that? Wasn't it the 90s?
Oh, the PVC water main replacement started in the 80s. About half the system's been replaced. When you look
Did that
at...
take 50 years?
Yeah, well, just about. I think, too, you have to look at other factors like material, when it was installed.
Yeah. Well, So if you tell me you're comfortable with that?
Yes, I feel that we are on par with many other areas. That's what we were doing in Naperville, 1% a year. And so I feel like very comfortable with that.
You are? Okay.
Yes, with the lifespan, the 100 years. The water main will run past its, it's not just gonna just stop working when it hits a certain year, but you do have to keep that.
Just want to see whatever we do that
Yeah.
we maintain it.
Yep.
Right? Ongoing maintenance, if you don't do it, it'll kill you.
And that's where our asset management strategy too is gonna come into play, to identify criticality and risk factors so that we're targeting our replacements in the most effective way we can.
I will say the only way we're able to get up to that 1%, because we used to be doing less than that, the only way we're able to do that is if we, by doing the water rate increases that the board approved last year. And so as we get the water rates up there over the next several years, then we'll have enough money to, on a consistent basis, be doing that 1%. So the only way to increase that even more is to increase the water bills significantly over what we've already just increased them. So, and there's already a built-in increase a little bit each year, so it would be saying we need a even bigger increase each year if we wanted to up that beyond 1%. So I think 1% is kind of a good bare minimum. Maybe, 10 years down the road, we take another look and see what else we want to do with it, but I think it would be hard to afford to do more than that right now. I don't know that our residents would appreciate an increase even more than what we're already doing.
But that's the balance, right? If it only comes from water rates, if that's our only revenue source?
Yeah, and it is.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's an enterprise fund, and so the idea is the service fees for that provide for that. So it comes from mostly water rates is the main place, though there's a little bit of like tap-on fees when, developments connect to our things and all that. So yeah, that's where it comes from. It's the water revenues to support it.
Okay, if you're happy, I'm happy, right? I just want you to have what you need.
Yeah, on that comment, just my gut feeling, I feel like this is the most we've ever done from like an infrastructure improvement standpoint, and then I've been involved. It just feels like there's a ton of projects, so I don't know if that's, Amy, is that true or not? I mean, I don't have to come back up, but it feels like we're doing a ton of work this year.
We are doing a ton.
So Trustee Barker asked for it, right?
Yeah. That's good, though.
That's a good thing to hear. No, it's great.
All right, next slide, water system improvements. So once again, the continuation of the North Water Tower construction that kicked off last year, we'll see this project come to an end. So this is the remaining cost to close out and finalize and finish that North Water Tower. And some of these next costs I put in here just to kind of bring to the board's attention, and some of the little costs that we do just to make sure that our system is operating as efficiently and effective as we can. Annual leak, water main leak detection. This is an outsourced program, outsourced service that we do, just to make sure that our system is operating as efficient and effectively as we can. If we have leaks in our system, that's just money lost in the system, money that we're buying it from DuPage Water Commission that we're just throwing away. It's not actually getting to the B box, as Jim alluded to earlier. Just make sure our system's operating efficiently. And village drinking water sampling, the federal government has increased some of these responsibilities for next year, so a little bit of an increase in terms of water sampling to make sure that we provide the most clean and effective water to our residents that we can. Getting towards the end, expenses to improve the overall resident or consumer experience. We talked again about lowering taxes for 2026, reducing that telecommunications tax from 6% down to 5%. Continuation of the DIP program within community development. We talked about public murals already, and 311 ticketing. And last thing I'll add is ADA compliant software for our website, making sure that our website is inclusive and everyone has access to materials that are on that website. Any questions so far for over some of the feedback questions?
think we hit them to you as we went along.
I think we've answered a lot of these already.
Very good. Is that it from you, sir?
No, he's got more.
Oh, you got more?
I think so, dude.
Well, let's get into it.
Do we want to talk about some of the projects that I'll say didn't quite make the cut? So this is the slide of the projects that didn't quite make the cut. So personnel, we only have so many resources to go around. Unfortunately, we don't have blank checks or money tree in the backyard. So we have so many resources to live within. And in the budget discussion here tonight, a lot of departments that have requested for staff did get some of the staffing that they asked for. We looked through the positions that were asked for from staff as part of the budget, asked staff to prioritize those positions that they were asking for, and took a look at the impact that those positions were going to provide to the village. Do we have the funds? Do we have the resources? And we were able to fund a lot of those employee positions that staff felt were the highest priority for their department. And these are the positions that were kind of secondary requests from the departments. In terms of capital, once again, kind of balancing the needs of the community, available resources, just the number of days available for construction projects. We just talked about this is maybe one of the largest infrastructure years that we've ever had.
Can't do it all.
Not enough time, staff to do everything. So some stuff that were initially in the budget, we kind of had to take a look at and maybe kind of reevaluate. Does it really make sense? Do we have the money this year? Do we have the staff and the time? The projects there in the middle, sample projects include Salto, Linden and Warwick, sidewalk engineering, Wilmette sidewalk construction, Dallas to Quincy, Farmingdale street lighting, and improvements to 39 East Burlington. A lot of these are probably getting pushed back into the 2027 budget, or maybe just to have a relook at the scope in terms of does it make sense and what type of project will come before the board at a future date. Any questions on any of these projects? So these projects aren't going away. It's just timing of them are kind of getting pushed back, like we are.
That's good.
Any of these that we haven't touched upon? We touched upon sales tax growth.
Yeah, I think you covered them all as we went through.
Think so?
Yeah, I know several of these were from Trustee Scales, who he mentioned that he thinks a lot of these already got covered as we went through the discussion, so.
Okay.
He said he can follow up if he's got any follow-up questions on it, but I do think we covered most of these specific questions there. I know you had said you had similar questions. I don't know if they got answered for you already.
You know what, though, I noticed, and I don't know if we even, for marijuana sales, I know DuPage gets a portion. Do we get a portion? Because you mentioned cars are the most, but is that factored in there?
Yeah, we do get sales tax from the two cannabis dealerships in town. That is included in the budget. It's
I mean, do we get more because we have them in our town, or is it just divide? Okay.
Yeah, we get the tax on the sales in our town.
Yes.
We get a little bit from everywhere, but we get specifically for our taxes as well.
We get two cannabis taxes. Just to Mr. point, we get a group or a bundle that is directly tied to the two establishments in town, and we do get a little bit from the state. The state shares a small portion with the village. It's not a lot of money. I can't remember the dollar amount off the top of my head, but it's likely a few thousand, $20,000 maybe. It's not.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right.
If there's no other questions, I guess we'll talk about next steps. I think Jim alluded to the next step will be to bring this budget back before the board next week. A week from today, I think there's a little bit of time at the police committee meeting the last 45 minutes or hour of that meeting we dedicated to continuing this conversation should the board have any questions. And then it'll be on the actual board agenda itself later at 6 for passage.
So if the board has any questions between now and then, it would be ideal to email Alan again, just kind of like we have before.
Yep.
And that will give Alan a time to be able to put together answers so we can address the questions you had at that committee meeting. So if you've got questions, the sooner we get them to Alan,
Yep.
the better answers we'll have at the committee meeting.
That's it.
Where'd we get all these good photos from in this presentation, huh? I didn't see a license fee for those in there here.
Those around the house.
Yeah, all right.
I will just say, Alan,
Part of
thanks
the
for
ladder
putting
truck.
all that together, and thanks
yes,
to all the
thank you.
departments. Everybody did a tremendous amount of work to get it to this point, and to get it to the point where it's digestible and something that the board can kind of wrap their heads around. So thank you to all of you and everyone who's done this.
Yes, thanks to
Appreciate
my
it.
departments, thanks to finance staff, all you guys' hard work.
Our biggest budget ever, right?
I didn't fact check that, but I would be
Probably.
shocked if it wasn't.
I'm usually pretty good on those facts.
Yeah. I would say without question.
$30 million
Yes.
fire station.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's up there.
It's a great job. No, honestly, great job all the way around. A little over 3 hours, very efficient. Every department I thought did very, very good, and I'm sure there'll be more questions, and we get another week to digest it and go back and forth, and hopefully put a bow on this before Thanksgiving is the goal, right?
That'd be great.
That'd be nice.
Okay, well, give it back to our chairwoman.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Plowman?
Second Guzzo.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.